Chapter 5696. During dinner at night, Arbor asked his son with a grin, "Did anything interesting happen at school today?" The little furball shook his head listlessly. "I play with a bunch of underage kids. Every day, besides reading those retarded books, I played with mud and picked some flowers and grass to weave some messy things. Mom, it's such a waste of time." Arbor patted his son's small head. "You're still young, so it's fine to waste some time." Moreover, this boy would hide in the star domain every day after school to draw talismans and refine pills. Sometimes, when he entered a cultivation state, he would completely forget the time. Speaking of which, he blushed with shame. His mother was a bit of a salted fish, yet his son was extremely motivated. Arbor saw that he was too hardworking. At such a young age, it was better to have more time to play. "Mom, on the way back, I ran into an old grandpa who was peddling talisman manuals to me." Arbor, adoptive father, that old grandpa, said he was an elder of Tsangzhou's talisman patrician family, the chief family. "Who is he? Do you know him?" Duanyu was startled and quickly shook his head. "I don't know him. Your adoptive father is Tsangzhou's emperor, so how would he know about people like cats and dogs? If you ask him who the patriarch of Tsangzhou's chief family is, he might know. How would he know about this elder or whatnot?" The little stoic explained to her son. The little furball nodded. "Oh, then it's fine if he doesn't know him." Mo Yin ladled a bowl of soup for his wife, and the corner of his eyes twitched for no reason. "What do you mean? What did you do to him?" "I didn't do anything." The little furball looked innocent. "That big swindler grandpa. I suspect that he might not be a member of Tsangzhou's chief family at all. Damn swindler. The talismans he drew can't even compare to the ones I drew when I was 2. The little furball harumphed. Seeing his parents' and uncle's gazes sweeping towards him, the little fellow angrily took out a handful of lousy talismans from his pocket and threw them on the table. "Look, these are really ugly. Everyone." Arbor took them out for a look and nodded in agreement with his son's point of view. "They are ugly. When I first learned how to draw talismans at the age of 7, my talismans were even better than this." The mother and son looked at the talismans drawn by the old man one by one and criticized in unison, "It's too ugly." Everyone was speechless. "Both of you, mother and son, stop talking. Don't use your weird talisman drawing skills to compare with the talisman grandmasters. You're not even on the same starting line." "Big liar." The mother and son scolded at the same time, curling their lips with the same expression. Venerable Peach Blossom almost spat out a mouthful of wine. He hurriedly turned around and coughed twice. No. How could he chat with Xiao Tuanzi while eating? Damn it. He wanted to laugh whenever he talked about it. He couldn't even eat properly. Mo Yin pursed her lips and looked at her little brat speechlessly. "What did you do to her?" "Nothing. This swindler grandpa. Does he think I'm a 3 to 5-year-old kid? He actually said that he wanted to use that lousy talisman manual to exchange for my cloud sky. I took out a body-securing talisman and slapped it on his head." Xiao Tuanzi snorted and tilted her little head. "He was fixed there by me." "Everyone, where?" "At the front door of the school." Fairy Ginkgo giggled and said, "Child, how can you bully people like this? He just ascended to the holy region on the first day, and you fixed him at the front door of the school. I'll never forget this for the rest of my life. Go and release him." Mo Yin was helpless and turned to order Aoyi. Chapter 5697. Mo Bao curled his lips. That old grandpa was a liar. He actually wanted to let him go. Wasn't that letting this old grandpa off too easily? Mo Yin reached out and stroked her son's head. "Just teach him a lesson. In the future, this old grandpa would probably take a detour whenever he saw Mo Bao. At night, Mo Bao tossed and turned on the bed, unable to fall asleep. He rolled and crawled up from the bamboo bed. Lord Guangguang, who was sleeping on the other side, rubbed his eyes and asked with a puzzled expression, "Little dumpling, where are you planning to go in the middle of the night?" "Mother has personally become a master. She's busy every day. I have to help her." Lord Guangguang looked sleepy. "Little dumpling, how are you going to help Mother?" Sigh. "These lords who have ascended to the holy region are really too worrisome. They're all living their lives like salted fish. No wonder mother must train them in the middle of the day. Time is limited. If this continues, they might not be able to make any big breakthroughs even after 8 to 10 years. Little dumpling, aren't you worrying too much? Lord Guangguang opened his mouth. He really wanted to tell his little brother to go to sleep in the middle of the night. Don't bother yourself with these troublesome matters. Mo Bao Bao slapped his thigh and jumped onto the ground. I've decided. Decided what? Lord Guangguang had a bad premonition. He felt that whatever little dumpling decided, it wouldn't be anything good. Give these uncles and aunties more exercise. Lord Guangguang's sleepy eyes suddenly widened. Son, you've been training very hard recently. Husband, I've added some hot water for you. Soak in it for a while longer. All right, thank you, wife. In a newly built bamboo house, a man soaking in a bathtub answered with a chuckle. Ever since Master took over our holy region, why do I feel that our days are getting better day by day? Although our daily training is quite tiring, I feel that slowly we can also live a full and warm life. The man sighed. I think Master is indeed having a hard time. Tian has sent people to supervise us. Speaking of which, we were a famous swordsman couple back in the underworld region. Who would have thought that after ascending to the sacred region a few years ago, I would actually become more and more unambitious? You're right to think that way. A cold voice suddenly appeared behind the couple's heads. The man in the bathtub turned his head to take a look and coincidentally saw a small head floating outside the bathtub. The child had a long ponytail and a jet-black jade seal inlaid on his forehead. At first glance, he looked like a freaking corpse. The man was so scared that his legs went soft and he sank into the bathtub. Caught off guard, he drank a mouthful of bath water. Cough, 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 cough. The man's face turned red. The woman looked at the child floating out from behind the bathtub in surprise. The child was about 5 years old. Her small face was delicate and pretty. Her phoenix eyes were wide open as she glanced at the man who had just taken a sip of the bath water. Does it taste good? The couple was speechless. Master has ordered that from today onwards, there will be an additional 4 hours of exercise every night. After the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, gather in front of Master's bamboo house. Well, what? A strange look appeared on the couple's faces. Happy. I'm happy for your whole family. Chapter 5698. On the other side, a middle-aged Xiozha was currently carrying his wife onto the bed with a sneaky smile. The female Xiao gave him a flirtatious smile, reaching out her small hand to rub his collar. Wang Ji. Wang Ji hurriedly moved his mouth over, looking like they were about to kiss. A chilly laugh sounded beside the two people's ears. Ha ha ha. The middle-aged Xiozha's body stiffened. A strange laugh suddenly came from his room in the dark night. The male and female scalps instantly exploded. Holy shit, there's a ghost here. The two pairs of eyes looked over in terror, only to see a small child floating in the room, his black eyes staring at them. This time, the two Xiozha's heart almost exploded. What's going on with their mentality collapsing in an instant? Could this child be a ghost child? The floating baby Mo looked at the two people's pale faces in confusion. Master has orders. Starting from today, there will be an extra 4 hours of exercise every night. After 15 minutes, gather in front of Master's bamboo house. The middle-aged Xiozha. I really have an impulse to beat this child to death. Less than an hour later, baby Mo floated all the way back to Bamboo Garden, asking with a puzzled expression, why does every one of them have a strange expression when they see me? What's that uncle doing at the end? Why'd he throw a slipper at me? Guangguang Dren's mouth twitches, saying expressionlessly, you floated around every household in the middle of the night. It'd be strange if they liked you. Baby Mo curled his lips. Forget it. I'm doing this for mother. I won't bicker about their attitudes. Guangguang Dren thought, if you don't bicker, others will bicker with you. Your bad habit of going out for a stroll in the middle of the night, it'd be good if you could change it. In the middle of the night, there were already many people gathered in front of the bamboo house. Everyone was holding all kinds of lighting equipment, illuminating the empty square in front of the bamboo house. Zhang Jing saw He Weiping and Co. in the crowd, and hurriedly squeezed over, saying with a speechless expression, "Everyone, were you also woken up in the middle of the night?" Thinking of the face floating outside the window, He Weiping could not help but slap his forehead. Young Master Mo is really too naughty. At that time, I was still bathing, and that child appeared behind me, floating out like a ghost. I fucking exploded on the spot. Isn't that so? This young Master Mo is too mischievous. Say, do you think we should report this matter to Master? Forget about the report. If Master gets angry out of humiliation, he might even double our exercise time. Big Brother Liu, what you said is extremely reasonable. Just as everyone was discussing animatedly, they heard a light and crisp cough coming from the front. Everyone looked up and couldn't help but twitch their mouths. She saw that young Master Mo Jr. was floating in from outside the bamboo garden. Under the boundless night sky, this fellow was like a little ghost, drifting without making a single sound. "Hello, everyone. Since everyone is here, let's begin." This young Master Mo said in a childish voice. He then took out a jade talisman from his pocket. Everyone stared at him warily, especially an old grandfather standing in the front row. His expression was especially nervous as he stared at baby Mo. This old grandfather was the Tsang Prefecture's Qi clan's elder who was miserably immobilized by his body securing talisman during the day. At this moment, he finally knew how stupid he was during the day. It was only his first day in the sacred region, and he had already kicked an iron plate. Chapter 56-99. Little young Master Mo He Weiping, who was sitting in the front row, hurriedly called out, "What are you doing? My child, let your uncles sleep and stop playing." "Uncle He, don't worry. The golems I released are for you to practice. Don't worry about it. It doesn't matter if you break them. I'll make another batch." Everyone. Something didn't sound right, but there was no time for them to think about it. Hundreds and thousands of muscular golems jumped out of the storage talisman and punched their bodies. In the middle of the night, the master turned over and pressed her entire body against her husband. "Wifey." Emolian half opened his eyes and reached out to hug her slender waist. He nuzzled against her. "Can't sleep? Do you want your husband to do something with you?" Master's round eyes were very bright in the dark night. She lowered her voice and whispered in his ear, "Don't make a fuss. Listen outside. Is there any noise?" "There's no noise." Emolian pulled her down and was about to kiss her. Master covered his thin lips with one hand. Something has happened. With a whoosh, this fellow got up from his body, put on some clothes, and mindlessly tried to walk away. Emolian hurriedly got up and pulled her back. Wait, how could his beautiful wifey go out dressed like this? No way, no way. His wifey looked like a lazy kitten after waking up. No one else could see it except him. "Listen, it's noisy outside." Master blinked and whispered to him, "Your son must be up to something again." Emolian suddenly smiled and lowered his head to kiss the little fellow. "Our son has gone astray. There's no hope for this. Let's work harder and have another child to educate." His master punched him in the head. "You think you can do that? You can't even teach one child well." Emolian's distinct phoenix eyes blinked vigorously as he grumbled aggrievedly in his heart. "Is my wife disdaining hubby? Let me tell you, based on my intuition as a mother, something must have happened outside. The little stoic punch her husband. Hurry up." Emolian was busy helping her tie the belt of her outer robe. Hearing her words, he pulled her into his arms and kissed her. "You're so annoying. You can't even sleep well." Arbor sighed helplessly and nodded. "I told you that this child is very quiet when eating. Nothing good ever happens when you're quiet. I'm telling you, you must be ruthless today and give this little guy a good beating. Otherwise, he will definitely be able to do whatever he wants. Why don't you beat him up?" Emolian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I have the image of a loving mother." The little stoic immediately shouted and pounded her fist on his chest. "It hurts, wifey, it hurts." Arbor hastily rubbed his chest and wrapped his arms around his neck. He whispered in his ear, "When we go out later, if our son is really up to no good, I'll call you 3. When I count to 3, you'll immediately rush up and beat him. Emollient, you do all the good things, but I do all the bad things. What kind of baby did I marry? Arbor glared at him. Why aren't you saying anything? Did he copy too few quotations from the Little Emperor? Emollient didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He nodded repeatedly and rubbed his head against her smooth forehead. This husband will listen to you, listen to you. Chapter 5700. When the two of them pulled open the door while holding hands, they saw that it was as bright as day outside. Many luminous pearls hung around the plaza in front of the court's entrance. A large group of miserable Saint Domain cultivators were currently encircled in the center of the plaza, struggling against hundreds and thousands of golems. Venerable Peach Blossom, Duan Yu, and the others, who were also woken up, were already standing outside the court. When they heard the door opening, they turned to take a look. They saw the little stoic expressionlessly walking down the stairs. Her eyes darted around before her gaze shifted to her son, who was hanging motionlessly in the middle of the plaza like a small jade sculpture. Feng Changqing and the others exasperatedly looked at each other. What happened? Zhou's Lian. Emollent's mouth twitched, and he couldn't resist coughing softly. Everyone looked at the two of them in confusion, only to see Zhou suddenly shout, 1, 2, 3. Emollient, that guy flew over with a whoosh everyone couldn't help but find a little funny. Emollient, that guy, no matter how they looked at it, was hilarious. He pounced to Baby Mo's side and picked him up in his arms. Baby Mo, who was originally resting with his eyes closed, opened his eyes to glance at his father and asked curiously, Daddy, why did you come? Emollient curled his lips at his son with a spurious smile. Why don't you guess why your dad came? Baby Mo immediately put on a vigilant expression when he saw his dad's appearance. Daddy, we didn't come to hit me, right? You guessed correctly. Emollient smiled faintly and raised his hand to slap his son's butt. Baby Mo immediately kicked his legs and wailed. When Sir Guangguang saw this, he hastily pounced over to rescue Emollient. He hung onto his father's arm and bared his white teeth, wanting to bite him. Who told you not to sleep in the middle of the night and to cause trouble all day long? What did you release these golems for? Can't you let these uncles have a good night's sleep? When Emollient raised her hand to hit her son, the sacred domain practitioners who were fighting against the mechanical puppets were so touched that they wanted to cry. Their savior had finally arrived. Their master had finally brought her husband to save them. Baby Mo cried out, Mother, Godfather. It's useless to call them Grandpa and Grandma. Emollient kept a straight face, trying to maintain the image of a strict father. As a loving mother, Zhou immediately trotted over and took her son from her husband's arms. She raised her hand and knocked on his forehead. Son, what did you do this time? Look at how angry your father is. How could you anger your father like this? Unfilial son, Emollient scolded. The corners of Duan Yu and Venerable Peach Blossom Divinity's mouths couldn't help twitching. This was too fucking fake. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that it was Sir Qiao who instigated Emollient to hit his son. At this moment, he still had to play the role of a good guy to comfort his son's hurt little heart. Mother Wu, father hit me. He hit Baby Mo's, but in front of so many people. How infuriating. Was Baby Mo shameless? Baby Mo could get angry too. Father is a bad guy. Arbor nodded, hugging his son and patting him lightly. Son, you're too naughty. What are you doing in the middle of the night instead of sleeping? Mother, I saw that you've been training these uncles too hard, so I wanted to help you. Arbor was still acting, but when he heard this, he couldn't help but stare blankly. Looking down at his son's big, watery eyes, he couldn't help but smile. Kissing his son, Arbor smiled and said, My son has grown up and actually knows how to help mother share her burden. Chapter 5701. Although your intentions are very good for mother, you can't just gather all these pitiful uncles and aunts in the sanctuary in the middle of the night. They can get angry too. Did you sneak into someone's house in the middle of the night? What if you meet someone with a bad temper and they beat you up the moment they come? What you're doing is disturbing their peaceful and beautiful dreams. Naturally, it's wrong. If we want to train them, we have to find the right time to inform them. We just have to inform them publicly. Don't you agree? Baby Emo nodded repeatedly. Then I won't disturb these uncles and aunts in the future. Previously, there was an uncle who crawled out of bed and screamed at me in terror. He even threw a slipper at me. I don't know what's going on either. That uncle was so angry. Everyone, Divine Peach Blossom laughed so hard that he almost spat out a mouthful of tea. Damn, this child must have disturbed the wonderful occasion of the celestial being. The corners of Emo Lien's mouth twitched. His hands itched to hit his son again. But now that his wife was hugging his son, he couldn't go up and hit him. Son, hurry and put away all these golems. Who would be able to stand this? They had a train day and night. They had to give them time to rest. Baby Emo nodded sensibly. With a wave of his hand, he put away the hundreds and thousands of golems he released into the storage talisman. The sounds of fighting on the field finally came to a stop. The exhausted sanctuary cultivators turned around and cupped their hands in thanks to Emo Lien, Arbor, and the others. Thank you for saving us, Master. Thank you, Master. Thank you. After Arbor dispersed the crowd, he hugged his son and yawned. Son, you can't cause trouble in the future, okay? Baby Emo nodded his little head and burrowed into his mother's arms. Mother, should I go and apologize to them? Don't. Everyone spoke up to stop him. If this slow-witted child were to sneak into every household in the middle of the night and use the glorified excuse of apologizing, the sanctuary cultivators would probably really go crazy. Those uncles and aunties won't really care about a child like you. But what about you? You have to strictly recognize your own mistakes. You can't do this again. If someone didn't invite you, you can't just barge into someone else's house, understand? Oh, Baby Emo nodded and hugged his mother as he asked, Mother, can little dumpling sleep with mother today? His father immediately tried to pull him back. No, you're almost 6 years old after the new year. You're no longer a 2 or 3-year-old child. You have to sleep independently. Everyone looked at him with disdain. Arbor ignored her husband and nodded with her son in her arms. Okay, son, let's sleep together tonight. We'll get up early tomorrow. Baby Emo nodded and hugged her mother's neck happily, looking very happy. His father, on the other hand, was not so happy. He kept shooting glances at Venerable Peach Blossom, who was beside him. Venerable Peach Blossom God, why should I help you carry your son away? Haha, you can happily scram with Jojo, but I still have to look after your son for you. Bah, it's getting late. Let's go. Venerable Peach Blossom pulled Duan Yu and left with a flick of his sleeves. I'm so sleepy. He ignored Emo Lien's gloomy glare at them from behind. Chapter 5702. On the second day, Baby Emo woke up on the small soft bed beside them. The little fellow was lying on his stomach in a soft and fluffy blanket. He arched his small body and poked his head out from under the blanket. He rubbed his large eyes and turned his head to look at the two people in the bed. Only then did he realize that in the middle of the night, he was actually carried to the soft bed by his heartless father to sleep. The little fellow was so angry that he jumped up like a carp and climbed onto the big bed barefooted. Father, this heartless and bad fellow. Every time he moved Baby Emo around like a toy, he even despised him for being a hindrance. He climbed onto the bed and kicked his father's leg with his small feet. His movements were abnormally nimble as he climbed onto the big bed in a few steps and flipped over his father's body. Emo Lien had long woken up and couldn't help but laugh when she heard the commotion. She scooped the little fellow into her embrace and pinched his small face. What are you doing so early in the morning? Let mommy sleep for a while more. Baby Emo huffed. I don't want you, I want mommy. This tone, why did it sound so much like I don't want you, I want the benefactress? Hearing that, Emo Lien frowned and lightly knocked on his head. You're not allowed to imitate your big brother's words. Humph. Baby Emo huffed and stretched out his small hand. I want mommy, I want mommy. Arbor was woken up by the father and son. She opened her pair of beautiful eyes and stared at the two for a while. Her small fist landed on Emo Lien's head. What's the fuss about? Baby Mo laughed out loud. He stuck out his small, but enrolled into Jojo's embrace and hugged her neck. Mommy, Mommy, quickly wake up, quickly wake up. Let's go cultivate. Why was he cultivating again? Arbor instantly felt that this son of hers was simply like a cultivation maniac. Such a small person like him. This level of cultivation was already sufficient. There was really no need for him to work so hard. Today's weather is so good. Why don't we go out for a patrol? Recently, the holy region had been reclaiming land everywhere. With some holy water and holy soil to cultivate, it shouldn't be long before the entire holy region's wasteland could be reclaimed. As long as they could grow crops, the lives of the people in the sanctuary would definitely improve. They had suffered too much. After being tormented for so many years, how could they still be as high-spirited as when they were in the 3 provinces? They were all old masters or ancestors of the aristocratic families of the 6 prefectures and 3 prefectures. All of them were so miserable. Okay. Baby Mo was very happy when he heard that he didn't need to go to school. It was great to be able to walk around. Baby Mo was very happy. Especially being able to go out for a stroll with father and mother would be even better. The family of 3 washed up and went out. Arbor took out a carriage that hadn't been used in the Starfield for a long time and jumped in with his son. Yin was dumbfounded. I drive the carriage. Of course. Mo Bao waved his fist fiercely. Don't tell me you want me to drive the carriage with my tiny body? Or do you want mother to tire herself out? Yin. Arbor couldn't help but laugh. He hugged his son and kissed him. Let's go out for a walk for half a day. At noon, let your Uncle Peach Blossom and foster father cook delicious food at home. We'll be able to eat once we get home. Yay! Yin pursed her lips. What else could she do? Whatever the little emperor said was the truth. She jumped into the carriage and became the coachman for her son and daughter-in-law. They drove the carriage all the way to the outskirts of the eastern region. Baby Mo happily hummed a little tune as he hugged his mother and said, Mother, mother, quick, look at father. Chapter 5703. His father had a hard life and was driving a carriage outside. When he saw his son lift the curtain and look over, he couldn't help but glance back. What are you looking at? When you have a son in the future, this daddy will have a grandson. You go outside to drive the carriage, and I'll sit in the carriage with my grandson and enjoy life with your mother. Arbor's mouth twitched, and he couldn't resist laughing. Unexpectedly, Baby Mo looked regretful. I think I'm going to be single for the rest of my life like adoptive father. Yin was taken aback and couldn't resist asking, why? There's no one else like my mother in this world. How can I still have a wife? Baby Mo angrily slammed down the curtain and left his father outside. Yin's mouth kept twitching, and she inexplicably felt like she asked a strange question. But her son's answer was also extremely smooth. Indeed, there was no other Qiao Qiao in this world. So how fortunate was he to meet her at the first moment, and also to tightly grasp her at the first moment, never letting go again? The family of 3 strolled around the eastern domain and strolled around. According to Master's instructions, the signboards had already been erected, and a simple bamboo fence had also been built in the periphery of the eastern domain. 1 or 2 green sprouts seemed to have sprouted on a piece of barren land. They were bright green and looked somewhat joyous. The children of cultivators who originally had nothing to do and didn't cultivate were now busy working in the fields. There was a small group of people sitting together roasting sweet potatoes on the side, and a faint fragrance drifted over. Compared to the barren holy domain when they first arrived, it finally had a bit more human flavor. Now, all the cultivators in the holy domain praised their master for being wise and mighty. After training the cultivators' physical strength and assigning them to farm, when the crops in the fields grew, no one would think of risking their lives to break out of this prison in order to send their children out of this prison. I'll have a chat with Heavenly Law later. If the holy domain isn't suitable for those young children to develop, why not send them to the 3 provinces in batches to train? The little stoic muttered to herself as she hugged her son. Rather than detaining those children of transcendent God realm cultivators here, It was better to send them to the lower realm to train. Although he might have to experience the fickleness of human relationships for a few decades, his parents and children would have to be separated temporarily. But how could one become strong without experience? In the end, under the skies of the sanctuary, one would only be able to retire. The environment of the sacred region was too monotonous and not suitable for the development of young people. Mother, does that mean we can't go back either? How could that be? The little stoic pursed her lips. Heavenly law won't let us go home, so we'll find Master and Aunt Master to chat with it. Right, let's have a good chat. Baby Mo's eyes suddenly lit up. Grandpa Heavenly Tao is too stubborn. If you don't talk to him, he won't know why the flowers are so red. The little stoic roared with laughter. Emolien was driving the car outside. When he heard the laughter of his wife and children coming from the car, he couldn't help but feel his heart itch. He hopped in the house and hugged his wife and son. It's almost noon. Let's go home for lunch. Who's driving the carriage outside? Arbor asked in amusement. Oh, my beautiful and gentle little master. It is Debeo who is serving you. Arbor giggled and reached out to hug Emolien. You're the only one who knows how to assign people. Was it human? Emolien smiled with a gentle gaze. The carriage headed for the bamboo building. From afar, they could see smoke curling up from the small building. Duan Yu pushed open the small courtyard's bamboo door and walked out, waving at them. Baby Mo hastily hopped off the carriage and ran toward him while cheering. Emolien and Arbor held hands as they walked toward the bamboo building with light steps. They met each other's eyes and smiled faintly. Like the resplendent sunlight, everything was just perfect. Chapter 5704. I'm back. GMO carried 2 large plastic bags, kicked off her shoes, and walked in from the entrance. Sister. Baoyu's younger brother suddenly jumped over and quickly reached out to take the plastic bags in her hand. You went to the supermarket? GMO carried a pile of ice cream to the refrigerator and stacked boxes in the freezer. When I passed by, I saw the supermarket having a promotion. Thinking of this, I bought more back. You bought so much milk. Yes. GMO took out 2 white t-shirts from the plastic bag and threw one to Baoyu's brother. Buy a box of milk and get a t-shirt. So I bought 3 boxes. It should be enough to drink for a while. They said there's going to be a heavy rain today. Remember to lock the doors and windows before going to bed. Okay? Got it, sister. GMO yawned and glanced at her brother. If there's nothing else, wash up and go to bed. Sister, wait a moment. Baoyu's brother ran over with his laptop and pulled her to sit on the sofa with a smile. I took a small task for you to make money. You're free these days. Do you want to give it a try? GMO took his laptop and flipped through the employer's information. A picture of a young man popped up on the screen. It seemed to have a background of the Republic of China. The man had a pair of charming peach blossom eyes. He wore a pair of white gloves on his hands and wore a black riding suit. He held a whip in his hand and stood upright at the window, looking out of the window. The side of his face was flawless. He was a charming demon. GMO yawned again, looking sleepy. Who is this? The nightclub's little prince? After saying this, GMO found that her brother's mouth was wide open in surprise. Sister, you really don't know him? This is Qin Yun, the popular actor who is known by everyone from the age of 3 to the age of 80. GMO shook her head. I'm not familiar with him. Baoyu's brother nodded and thought, sure enough, it's not suitable to talk about this topic with the elderly. Sister, don't worry about it. You just need to remember that we took a deposit of 300,000 yuan from him and guaranteed his safety for 2 months. Okay. GMO raised her hand and patted her brother's shoulder, rubbed her eyes, and said, then I'll go to bed first. When will your tasks start? 3 days later, sis. Oh. Then she would report to film Emperor Qin 3 days later. Sister Ran, that long-winded agent of his is hard to deal with. You should give him a call before you go. GMO waved his hand, indicating that he understood. Not long after, GMO came out of the shower and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window to look at the night sky outside. It was pitch black, with only the faint light from the street lamps. She reached out to lock the window and draw the curtains. Then, she returned to the bed and rolled onto it. She burrowed her head under the blanket and looked at her watch. 11:45. A wave of sleepiness hit him. While he was in a daze, he kept hearing the sound of the window vibrating. There seemed to be a strong wind outside. Between the gaps in the glass, there were some whistling sounds from the wind. Boom! A strong gust of wind had clearly shattered the window, but GMO seemed to be stuck in a nightmare, unable to open his eyes. Two balls of light that looked like blazing suns wrapped around a circular object and a moon-shaped object. With a whoosh, they entered her glabella. In the blink of an eye, GMO's eyes widened in horror, and she suddenly stood up. No matter how far she drifted in the silent and boundless void, no matter how much time she wasted, the sleeping beast would finally open its eyes. Chapter 5705. Spring afternoons were a good time to be drowsy. Longevity Hall JoJo was wearing a little white dress, lying on an open book of poison. Her head was already tilted on the pillow, and she looked like she was fast asleep. Master JoJo opened her eyes with a hazy expression. She sat up straight and wiped the saliva that had dripped onto the book. I fell asleep again. Master, you've been falling asleep all the time recently. You can fall asleep while sitting and reading, and you'll mysteriously fall asleep while eating. Chocho said worriedly. Master, could it be that you're suffering from premature aging? You're the premature one. Your whole family is premature. She was only 7 years old. Even if she was premature, she wouldn't have aged that long, right? Master JoJo sat up straight and put her two little hands on her knees. Maybe it's because I've been too bored recently. I won't be bored if I draw some talismans. She took out a golden book that was half as tall as her body from her conscience. The little girl flipped through the pages, took out a gold-beaded talisman pen, and took out a jade talisman to engrave. Chocho, have the leaves grown out recently? Not yet, Master. I see that the top of your tree is bare. It doesn't look good. That's because you made me bald, Master. Master JoJo was silent. If Chocho could turn into a Trayan at this moment, she would definitely roll her eyes at her. Don't think that you can erase your previous inhumane and deranged actions just because you're silent. Master JoJo concentrated on drawing a complicated summoning talisman. Chocho suddenly said, Master, you're so familiar with drawing now. What if you forget in the future? How can I forget? Master JoJo held her gold-beaded talisman pen and touched the jade talisman in her hand. She said proudly, Even if I forget anything, I won't forget to draw talismans. You're sleepy now, and your memory isn't good. What if you forget how to draw talismans in the future? Wouldn't that be a huge loss? Chocho continued. Master Silver, is Chocho right? Arbor pondered for a moment. Then I'll draw one for each type of talisman in advance and put it in the golden talisman jade tome. What do you think? Good. Master is still the smart one. Arbor took out a bunch of blank talismans and started to draw talismans seriously. His brush moved like a dragon, and he concentrated wholeheartedly, drawing a stack of various talismans in a short moment. Arbor reached out her hand, and the golden talisman jade tome turned into several jade slips and flew into her hand. Master, what are you inscribing on the golden talisman jade tome? This kind of profound grade flying celestial talisman can be activated without the need to draw an energy. However, drawing it is a little complicated. With the flying talisman in hand, flying is no longer a dream for ordinary people. Do you want to soar in the sky? Do you want a pair of invisible wings? Make a flying talisman. The sapling was speechless as it watched its master carve 2 lines of words on the golden talisman jade tome. She felt that Master Silver was a little cute, sometimes many years after her rebirth. Arbor held the gold-beaded talisman pen and concentrated on learning how to draw the deity inviting talisman. She smoothed out the demonstration talisman in her hand and sighed in her heart. This demonstration talisman was drawn really well. Speaking of which, who was so considerate to draw her a demonstration talisman for every type of new talisman he learned. She held the one she drew and compared it with the demonstration talisman. Arbor sighed. Senior's drawing of the deity inviting talisman is obviously much more mature than mine. She still needed to work harder. Chapter 5706. Dressed in black armor, the youth stepped on the remains of the zombies on the ground as he walked up the hill and gazed into the distance. What he saw was a scene of desolation. There were withered branches and withered leaves, and there wasn't a hint of green in his eyes. The royal guards behind him tacitly dispersed and searched around. "Your Highness." Huifeng used a branch to stir the fire that hadn't been completely extinguished. He said with an exhausted expression, "Zombies probably suddenly attacked this camp. The survivors probably all ran away." Emo Yin was silent and looked up at the faint crescent moon. "Let's go take a look." "Yes." Huifeng and the others cupped their fists in response and followed the youth into the depths of the hill to search. Aside from corpses, all they saw along the way were moving zombies. After searching for most of the night, both men and horses were exhausted. Emo Yin turned around and glanced at them. "Set up camp and rest." "Your Highness." Huifeng stirred a clump of withered branches and gazed at the slowly burning fire. "If this chaotic world ends, what would your Highness want to do the most?" Emo Yin's eyes flickered. "It's been a long time since I've seen the colors of red flowers and green willows. This gloomy world truly caused despair to rise in people's hearts. It was as if everything in front of them was devoid of life, and they couldn't see a trace of hope. The world was like an old, mottled painting that had lost all of its original colors. It was so shabby that it instilled fear in people. If this dull and tedious life of fighting could end, he was willing to find a small garden and unload all his burdens. He could raise flowers and plants and live a carefree life." Seeing that Her Highness didn't give a complete answer, Huifeng didn't intend to continue asking. Instead, he said with a smile, "If this chaotic world can end one day, this subordinate wants to go to the countryside to farm and raise chickens." "Chickens?" A half-asleep royal guard couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment. "Heh. Chickens are good. Raise more, and you can kill them to eat in the future." I haven't tasted chicken soup in a long time." Huifeng wanted to go up and beat this stinking brat, but Emo Yin reached out to stop him. "Rest early. We'll search the vicinity tomorrow morning. If we can't find anyone alive, we'll return to the capital first." "Yes." Their Emo Kingdom soldiers don't make sound. Fan Xiuhe covered Sister Ji's mouth with his hand and shook his head at her. "These soldiers should be searching for supplies nearby. We can't go out. Our supplies won't last much longer. If they take all of it, the consequences will be unimaginable." "But Jojo," Sisgu turned around worriedly and glanced at the unconscious Arbor. "Last night, the zombies attacked our camp. Jojo fought too much and was exhausted. He'll be fine after a few days of rest. Don't worry. What we need to do now is to avoid these soldiers and get Jojo out of here. They seem to be leaving." Sisgu lay in the bushes and watched as a tall young man walked down the hill. This young man was very handsome and tall. Even though he was covered in dust, his black robe seemed to have been smeared with dirt. But as he stood there, it was as if thousands of stars could not obscure his brilliance. "Are we really?" Before Sisgu could finish speaking, Fan Xiuhe covered her mouth again. Emo Yin seemed to have sensed something, and he turned his head to look at the thicket overgrown with brambles in the distance. "Return to the capital." He strode forward on his horse and lightly patted it. Then he turned around and led everyone down the dirt path on the hillside at lightning speed. When Arbor slowly woke up, his heart suddenly felt empty, as if he had lost something. Chapter 5707. You actually didn't say a word and disappeared without a trace. Duan Yu's sword was swift and ruthless, each strike aimed at his body. The latter remained silent and only drew his sword to parry. He didn't retaliate even after several dozen moves. "Do you know that someone has always been thinking about you, and worrying about you at all times? Yin pursed her lips and parried his sword. Her figure flashed, and her ink-colored clothes fluttered in the night sky as she leaped towards the eaves. Yu swiftly chased after her to the top of the high wall and leaped down in pursuit. Two figures, one black and one white, slender as bamboo, streaked across the faint moonlight and landed on the treetops. They leaped to the front of the pavilion, leaving behind two faint afterimages. The sound of sword chi collided with the sound of wind. Two streaks of white light suddenly landed outside the wall, breaking countless trees. This sword duel lasted for a full hour. The moonlight gradually deepened, and even the faint chirping of cicadas and insects gradually quieted down. The two people silently laid on the roof for a long time without speaking. From this angle, one could only see a crescent moon hanging halfway above the branches. The long window was slightly open, and the faint moonlight shone on the little stoic's face. She was drowsily sleeping under a thin blanket. She was completely unaware that these two people had just broken the roof and fiercely fought. She hasn't been eating or sleeping well these days. Yu raised his hand above his head and easily caught the wine jug that Yin threw at him. We made such a big commotion, but she didn't even wake up. You should know how tired she was these days. Thank you, Yin said solemnly. Yu glanced at him from the corner of his eyes and poured the wine jug into his mouth. Do I look like someone who would thank you? These days, it's all thanks to you supporting and taking care of Jojo by her side. A toast to you. Yin raised the wine jug in front of him. Yu glanced at him again and made him hold it up for a long time before reluctantly clinking the wine jug with him. There's no need for thanks between you and me. That's true. Yin nodded lightly. There are many things that just need to be remembered. Yu covered his forehead with one hand and gazed at the moonlight faintly falling on the branches through the gaps between his fingers. Yin, I'm sorry. Sometimes, a terrifying thought would appear in his mind. For example, how good would it be if Yin didn't come back? Another example, perhaps Yin really died in the sacrificial sea abyss? The legendary abyss of the sacrificial sea. No one could climb out of it, right? Perhaps time could wash away all the memories. As long as he had enough patience to stay by Jojo's side, cry with her, laugh with her, watch the mountains and seas with her, watch the moon and the stars with her, maybe there would come a day when she would forget that person. She would see how hard he was trying to get closer. Thousands of words, thousands of threads. In the end, they only merged into one sentence. You fierce girl, who would like you? Only Yin, that fool, would be infatuated with you. Lies. I also like you. I also want to pluck the stars and moon for you. Pluck the sun, moon, and the universe, Yin. Yu covered his peach blossom eyes with his fingers and said softly, sometimes I wonder if a step late is a lifetime late. Time is not in our control. Don't move. What's your name? Yu. I'm a good person. You don't look like one. The bright moonlight reflected on his slightly moist eyes. Chapter 5708. Failure, failure, failure. Recently, I've heard these two words too many times. I hope that the operations team can give this lord a satisfactory answer. Why did it fail to this extent? Operations team, intelligence team. Did these three departments cooperate well? Did they? The long table was slammed loudly. Patriarch Black Gold's face was dark as water, and his sharp gaze swept over everyone present. Vice Hall Master Ghost, who had an angel halo above his head and a deathly expression, stammered, "Boss, please calm down." "Shut up," Patriarch Black Gold shouted angrily. "You've already been dead for so many days. You don't have the freaking right to speak here." Vice Hall Master Ghost whimpered and shrank back behind team leader Qin Hong. "Speak." Patriarch Black Gold pointed at Qin Hong, who had shrunk his neck and lowered his head, and scolded, "As the overall team leader of the entire operation team, did you play a coordinating role? Did you truly take this matter to heart?" "I did, boss." Qin Hong opened his mouth to speak. But Patriarch Black Gold angrily retorted, "You have a fart." Young Master Omega Kotoko leisurely sipped his tea. "Boss, please pay attention to your words. Our scribe doesn't know how to continue with what you just said." Fifth Young Master Chin held a golden fountain pen and blankly looked up at Patriarch Black Gold. "Should I record the words, 'You have a fart,' in writing?" Patriarch Black Gold angrily slammed the table. "Look at what you've done previously. We went to Devastating Island to discuss business, but we couldn't reach an agreement. They blew up the entire island, killing all the elites we nurtured. Is this how you discuss business? Can't you speak properly? Must you use this kind of extreme method?" Later, Vice Team Leader Ghost went to Yen City and actually got into a fight with Sangzhou Company's boss. Can't you freaking be a bit more modest and cautious? Must you use this kind of violent method to discuss business? You're trying to destroy our entire Heavenly Fortune Company. But boss, didn't you say before that if the conciliatory policy doesn't work, we'll take forceful measures? The planes and cannons were already set up, yet you say we're wrong? What? Everything is up to you, boss. Why do you need us, the operations team, and the intelligence team, to do anything? Shut up. Ancestor Black Gold angrily shouted as he slammed the table. Look at you, look at you. He pointed at the dozen or so department elites and junior leaders present, panting heavily as he shouted angrily. What's the point of the company paying you? Tell me, which of the tasks assigned to you by the company can you do well? Speak, speak. Eldest Young Master Chin leisurely raised his wrist to look at his watch, which was a limited edition of only one in the world. He drank a mouthful of coffee with a grin before standing up and saying, "Boss, it's 5 o'clock. Let's get off work." Everyone was speechless. Old Ancestor Heijin was so angry that he slammed the table when he saw the elites of the department stand up one after another. No one knew if it was because he had smashed it multiple times, but the entire long desk collapsed with a loud bang. Everyone stood up with a dumbfounded expression and looked at the collapsed desk. Old Ancestor Black Gold angrily said, "Who bought this broken table? What about General Affairs?" Asked the General Affairs Manager to come over. "Boss, General Manager Mu is on annual leave today. Tell her to get her ass over here tomorrow. BUSS, BUSS. Quick, quick, call an ambulance." Boss fainted from anger. Chapter 5709. In the bright and clean Angel Number 1 hospital, wearing a blue-striped hospital gown, Patriarch Black Gold leaned against the headboard of the hospital bed with a gloomy face and flipped through a stack of invoices in his hand. "Boss, you saw it. Supervisor Mu used her power for personal gain and purchased a batch of inferior tables and chairs. The evidence is conclusive. Take a look for yourself." Luo Qizhong's chubby face was smiling like a blooming flower, but his small eyes kept flashing with excitement. The long table in the conference room was broken by Patriarch Black Gold. Luo Qizhong was laughing like crazy. He had long disliked Mu Qingya, the General Affairs Department's woman. She was a woman in her 30s. Instead of staying at home to help her husband and children, she had to come out and argue with men. It was inexplicable. The point was that Mu Qingya was even more influential than him when it came to the two mini-bosses. He was the supervisor of the purchasing department, but Mu Qingya had no sense of propriety and had to steal his job. Wasn't she trying to make money out of it? The heavens were really opening their eyes. Was there any other opportunity that could be better than this one? Mu Qingya's table was broken by Patriarch Black Gold. What did this mean? It meant that this woman was seriously embezzling money. She bought a table worth 10,000 yuan, but it wasn't even worth 300 yuan. Luo Qizhong took the opportunity to complain about Mu Qingya. A few days ago, Patriarch Black Gold didn't like him and threw him to Qin Hong, the leader of the operation team. Luo Qizhong had been suppressing his anger for a long time. Today, he planned to take revenge on Mu Qingya. A few steps away, Luo Qizhong couldn't help but be overjoyed when he saw the angry expression on Patriarch Black Gold's face. "Haha, General Affairs Department's Mu Qingya. This woman is dead meat today. Knock, knock, knock." Mu Qingyao walked into the ward in a tailored black business suit and a pair of pointy high heels. She bowed 90 degrees. "Hello, boss." Patriarch Black Gold stared at her with a gloomy face. "I'm warning you to embezzle money. What do you have to say? Don't think that I don't know what you've done behind my back. Mu Qingya, do you want to go to jail or make up for your embezzlement and resign? I'll let you choose." Luo Qizhong was elated. Oh my God, his boss was so mighty today. He actually got rid of Mu Qingya, this malignant tumor, in one breath. It couldn't be any better. Mu Qingya panicked. She gritted her teeth and said, "Boss, let me explain. Anything I buy, there are invoices to prove it." Luo Qizhong quickly interrupted. "Don't give me that. Don't think that we don't know. Isn't it too easy for your general affairs team to forge some fake invoices?" Mu Qingya sneered. "Then do you have evidence that I've pocketed it? The 10,000 yuan table is the evidence." Mu Qingya gritted her teeth. "I need to discuss this with the two bosses." "Boss, you can make the decision." Luo Qizhong slammed the table and shouted, "Are you the leader or is the boss the leader? How can you be so evasive? In any case, you must hand in your resignation today." Mu Qingya was depressed. "Luo Qizhong, you better shut up now. I'm not saying that I won't solve the problem, but I need to ask the two bosses first." Luo Qizhong bit his handkerchief. "Boss, look, she's using the two bosses to pressure you. She doesn't care about you at all." At this moment, the door of the ward was pushed open again. "Bring it in." Young Master Omega Katoku waved his hand and had two subordinates move the broken table in. Chapter 5710. Xiao Xiao. Stay with me forever, okay? Once you enter the abysmal underground palace, you will never be able to walk out. This leads to the netherworld, to the shattered void. Stay with me, let's stay together in the void, forever, okay? I felt that I had finally caught her. I had finally caught the girl that I had longed for my entire life. I had finally caught her. I would never let go again, however, in the next second, in the blink of an eye. I suddenly realized that the entire world seemed to have changed. I was left alone again. I hurriedly and miserably fell into the entrance of the 9 Nether Underground Palace. "No!" I screamed Xiao Xiao with all my might. I wanted to reach out and grab the figure that was getting further and further away from me. I want to grab her so badly. However, I couldn't. As always, I couldn't grab her. My body was suddenly pressed down by something. Before I could react, I was pressed down by that thing and fell into the entrance of the abysmal underground palace. I panicked and wanted to counterattack. I rushed to the mountain wall and was surprised to find that I was in a trance. That damned entrance of the underground palace was completely sealed. Yes, it was closed. It was closed. There was no more light shining in. There was no more light. My Xiao Xiao was gone. She was far away from me. I couldn't catch her anymore. It shouldn't be like this. Why did I end up in such a terrible state? I used all my strength to smash at the permanently sealed entrance to the cave, using up almost all of my strength. A faint voice suddenly sounded in my ears. "It's useless. You said yourself that it's useless. Once you enter the abysmal underground palace, you will never be able to walk out," the voice said calmly. "Didn't you say it yourself? This leads to the netherworld, to the shattered void. We have no way back. The way back has already been sealed. Second young master, I will accompany you. I will accompany you in the vast and silent void. I will be with you forever. You must be happy." When I heard this voice, I couldn't help but shiver. I took a few steps back hesitantly and turned around. I saw her at first glance. That woman who has always been invisible in my eyes. This young lady in her 20s didn't look very pretty, but when her facial features were put together, she had a kind of attractive charm. This Miss Ran always seemed to have a different kind of charm and pride. But so what if she was charming? I still won't like her. Under such circumstances, I hated her even more. Why was she the one who appeared here? Why isn't Xiao Xiao here to accompany me? "It's you." I gritted my teeth in anger. "Did you fly over?" Just now, at the entrance of the cave, it was this woman who pounced on me and suddenly fell on top of me. If not for that, I might have had a chance to turn back. I might have had a chance to catch Jojo. "Second young master, Don't you want to see die? She came against the light, her voice somewhat strange. Oh no, there was no light source here at all. It was pitch black here. If it weren't for my good eyesight, I wouldn't have noticed the strange expression on her face. Yes, it was extremely strange. It was like a hunting beast that suddenly saw a piece of meat in the forest. Her eyes stared at me quietly, making my hair stand on end. Chapter 5711. Boss, what do you have to say for yourself? Hey Jean was lying on the bed, looking furious. Look at the people you've planted. Did you arrange for Mu Qingya, Supervisor Mu, to be promoted? Boss Omega Katoka nodded. That's right. Bring the things up a little more. He waved his hand, and a few people threw the broken pieces of the table in front of Hey Jean. The things fell to the ground with a clatter. Hey Jean looked over with a gloomy expression. What do you mean by this? Why did you move these old tables and chairs here? Boss, don't you understand? You've been deceived. Boss Omega Katoku said with certainty. This is the table that you broke with your own hands. I've already asked someone to identify it. It's been tampered with. The bottom of the table has been hollowed out. Otherwise, why do you think the table would break into pieces with just a few slaps? Hey Jean was confused. Do you mean that someone wants to use me to get rid of Supervisor Mu? He glanced over at Luo Qizhong, who was standing at the side with a dazed expression. Could it be this person who did it? Mu Qingya pretended to wipe the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief. It's okay for me to be wronged, but I really don't want to see you being kept in the dark by a villain. Boss Omega Katoka nodded. Show me the evidence. A man walked out from behind Boss Omega Katoku and placed a small tablet in front of Hey Jean. Hey Jean clicked on it. The video was of Luo Qizhong sneaking into the meeting room. What else do you have to say? Hey Jean was furious and yelled at Luo Qizhong. The latter was confused. How is this possible? This isn't me. Boss, this isn't me. You already brought a saw and shovel into the meeting room. You're the one who's causing trouble. No, it's not me. It's not. Boss, this must be someone from the company in Yin City who sent someone to frame me. I've been advocating for the acquisition of the Sangzhou company in Yin City. This must be the work of a despicable person deliberately making you hate me. Oh, what are you doing? Let go of me. Villain. I think you're the villain. Mu Qingya slapped the document on Luo Qizhong's face. Don't quibble. Your purpose is already clear. If it weren't for your own selfish motives, why would you do this kind of thing again and again? You just want to push me down because you're afraid that I'll block your path to wealth. It's not, boss. Please believe me, boss. Hey Jean waved his hand and got someone to bring Luo Qizhong out. He looked at Mr. Omega Katoku and Mu Qingya inside. The children are all grown up and have their own ideas. All these years, I can't understand the behavior of you and your big brother. But I only hope for one thing, and that is to let our Sky Fortune Company continue to flourish and not let it walk down the path of ruin. Mr. Omega Katoku nodded with a solemn expression and left the ward with Mu Qingya. As soon as Mu Qingya walked out of the ward, she asked in a low voice, Boss, do you still want to continue working with the Sangzhou company? Mr. Omega Katoka nodded. The old generation's methods are no longer useful. There's no future without funds. If possible, I don't want to take this step. But who knew what the future would be like? There was no movement in the long corridor for a long time until Mr. Qin walked out of the dim light. He flipped through the proposal in his hand. Sigh. The old man probably didn't expect that Sky Fortune has already changed hands at Sangzhou. Should we tell boss? Since it's already like this, forget it. If he told him now, the old man would be angered to death. Let him live for 2 more years. What a pity. Chapter 5712. I felt a bone-chilling coldness and was momentarily speechless. I had never looked Zhao Qiran in the eye before and had long forgotten when and where I had first met her. It was this woman who had ruined my entire plan. Originally, I could have been together with Xiao Qiao. It was all this woman's fault. It was all her fault for pouncing at me at the crucial moment and throwing me into the 9 Nether Underground Palace. Once I entered the void, I would be unable to return. I used all my strength to heavily punch the huge rock at the entrance. However, the strength disappeared like a clay ox entering the sea. Could it be that I would truly be unable to leave this pitch-black void in this lifetime? My heart was ice-cold and filled with hatred. Zhao Qiran actually walked over with a smile and tugged at my sleeve. Second young master, let's go ahead and take a look. Although it's a vast expanse of emptiness, the stars here are like a sea of stars. It's also very beautiful to look at. Where are the stars? Where is the sea of stars? I turned my head to take a look. There was only a vast expanse of darkness in the void. There was no end in sight and no light in sight. Everything was hidden in this darkness. It was empty, just like the weeds spreading in my heart. This woman must be blind. Zhao Qiran said to me with a smile, "Young master, could it be that you can't see the blue waves of the sea of stars? But I can see it all. Look, I can imagine it as I wish. I can even feel the aura of the waves. Crazy, crazy, you're truly crazy." Suddenly, I broke into a run, roaring as I ran and shouted into the endless darkness. "Let me out! Heavenly Tao! Yes, Heavenly Tao definitely exists. No one could do anything, but Heavenly Tao definitely could let me out. Heavenly Tao! Heavenly Tao!" Zhao Qiran couldn't help but laugh. "Don't think about it, second young master. Heavenly Tao won't be here. This is the boundless void. Other than the boundless void, there's nothing else." I suddenly lunged forward like a madman and grabbed Zhao Qiran's neck. "Kill her. Kill this crazy woman who only knew how to giggle at me. Then think of a way to leave this place. I must leave. If I don't leave, how can I find my Xiao Qiao?" Second young master. Zhao Qiran didn't seem to fear death. Although she found it difficult to breathe, she still opened her eyes and looked at me with a smile. "You have to consider this carefully. If you really kill me, you'll be the only one left in the vast void. Wouldn't that make you even more lonely and miserable?" I stared at her blankly, as if I was seeing this woman for the first time. I unconsciously let go and stared at her as I bent over and coughed several times. "Zhao Qiran, I don't need you to accompany me. You'll find out in the future. Everyone needed someone to accompany them. No, otherwise, wouldn't it be too lonely?" Zhao Qiran smiled. She raised her hand and gently took mine. "Second young master, don't worry. Ran will always be with you. No matter how many years you have to spend in the void wasteland, Ran will always be with you. I don't want you to accompany me. I don't want you to accompany me." I muttered to myself as I looked around. "I don't need you to accompany me." I walked in a daze, but there was only a dark void around me. Even if I walked, where could I go? Zhao Qiran had been following me silently, as though she would follow me wherever I went. Gradually, the days passed one by one. At first, I could still ask Zhao Qiran what day it was. But after dozens or hundreds of days, I didn't know what day it was anymore. Every time I looked back, Zhao Qiran would smile at me gently. I felt that Zhao Qiran was very happy here because she would smile at me every time she saw me. Her smile was indescribably happy. One day, I finally couldn't help but ask her, "Don't you feel bad?" "Why would I feel bad?" Zhao Qiran looked at me strangely. "I can stay by the person I like and walk slowly with him under the starry sky. Why would I feel bad? I feel that each day is very happy." I couldn't help but tremble. In this void, we have nothing. We can't open our inner worlds. We can't even change our clothes. No food, no water, but what does that matter? Zhao Qiran smiled gently at me. "We don't feel hunger or fatigue in the void. Don't you think that's the biggest problem? Don't feel hunger or fatigue walking around in this damn place day and night. Don't you think that's terrifying?" Zhao Qiran shook her head. "It's not terrifying at all, second young master. I'm the happiest to be with second young master." I stared at her dazedly for a long time. My lips trembled. "I won't like you." "It's fine," Zhao Qiran said softly. "It's fine, second young master. We have a lot of time to spend together. I can wait, whether it's hundreds or thousands of years. I can keep waiting until you change your mind." Thinking of how I had to stay with Zhao Qiran for hundreds or thousands of years, I couldn't help but tremble. I felt like all my strength had been sucked out. I suddenly found that it was a bit terrifying to be entangled with love. How could a person entangle another person for hundreds or thousands of years without wavering? Wouldn't she feel tired? I tried every day to tear open this void and enter. I tried everything. I even wanted to self-destruct to leave this void. But it was too difficult. It was very hard to self-destruct in the void. When Zhao Qiran discovered my intentions, she followed me closely. Wherever I went, she would keep an eye on me, vigilantly preventing me from self-destructing. I've been trying for a few hundred days. Then I got tired. I wasn't even happy to walk. I was like a pile of mud in the void. Sometimes when I was in the mood, I would happily say to Zhao Qiran, I married Xiao Qiao in my previous life. Did you know? Xiao Qiao was very grateful to me when I saved her from the dungeon. Although she was weak to the point of being transparent, she would still be very nervous and sad when she found out I was injured. She would hold a pen in her mouth and copy scriptures for me all night to pray for me. When I saw her, she was always lying there quietly, waiting for me to come and touch her head. She was really pretty. I think I liked her a lot back then. But later, I didn't know if it was because of pride or loneliness, but I personally ruined everything. I didn't know how many times I repeated these words to Zhao Qiran. Every time, Zhao Qiran would lie on my lap and whisper to me, "It's okay, you have me now. I will always be with you, forever." Forever? I couldn't help but shudder. Even the tip of my heart felt cold. I thought to myself, but I don't want you. No matter how much time has passed, I will never want you. If time could really turn back, I would be willing to give up my life in exchange for 2 hours to be with my Qiao. Obsession, this is probably my destiny in this life. Chapter 57:13. When Mother was buried, it rained continuously for more than 3 months. Today, the sky finally cleared up a bit. I followed the palace walls and slowly walked on the desolate and empty main road. There was always a different feeling in my heart. Father Emperor's madness was getting worse. Sometimes, when he had a headache, he would go crazy and smash things. In the past, when Mother was lying there like a living corpse, he wasn't that crazy. But now I knew that everything was developing towards the worst situation. The situation in the capital was no longer stable. There were filthy things everywhere that were rotten but not yet dead. Sometimes they wouldn't sleep in the middle of the night and would circle around the outer walls of the capital. No matter how many were shot to death, there would always be more. I also didn't know how long I could hold on. I was always worried about Father Emperor and Mother Empress on Seacombe Planet. I also thought about 12th Brother's weak shoulders and wondered if he could support the Mo Kingdom's rivers and mountains. But I could only think about it like this. I couldn't go back. Compared to the peaceful lower star domain, perhaps the future of the divine continent was even more terrifying. Your Highness, do you want to take a look at the 100-Flower Festival prepared by the Ministry of Rites? Zhao Tengdong moved over and asked me in a low voice. That's right. After the mourning period, these officials were actively preparing to choose a consort for me. The 100-Flower Festival, glorified as a gathering of marriageable women from each family and letting me choose. But I wasn't interested in it at all. I used the excuse of mourning for 3 years as an excuse, but those officials braved the death of my father emperor to admonish me. They cried and said that as long as the heir apparent didn't have an heir, the country would be in danger. I was really annoyed by these two-faced dogs. The zombies outside the city were causing chaos. They didn't think of countermeasures all day long, only thinking about these useless things. It wasn't like I was going to die. So what if I didn't have an heir? Sometimes I really wish I could be as crazy as Imperial Father and chop up all these talkative officials one by one. During the 100-Flower Festival, I sat there with an abnormally cold gaze. I looked like a door god. Oh, it couldn't be an ice sculpture, right? Those women looked at me with timid expressions. When I glanced at them, I felt annoyed. 1, 2, 3. All of them were so pretentious and without any special characteristics. At this moment, 2 women came forward and bowed. Greetings, Your Highness. I know Qin Shaoji and General Zhong Li's daughter, Qin Baojia and Zhongli Ji Wei. If nothing unexpected happened, These two women should be the concubines that the Ministry of Right selected for me. What a joke. Since the Ministry of Rights has taken a fancy to these two, then let those old men marry them. I lifted my head to look at them. Seeing the two of them pretending to be shy and cute, I couldn't help but feel resentful. It shouldn't be like this. I always felt that something was wrong in this life. It was wrong again and again, so wrong that I couldn't look straight at the future. I stared coldly at the two women who came forward to greet me, and suddenly flipped the table in front of me. A series of things fell to the ground. Forgiveness? Forgiveness for what? I strode away in a huff. The 100-Flower Festival ended on a bad note, and the news quickly spread throughout the court. Soon, the rumors spread throughout the capital. They said that His Highness the Crown Prince didn't like women and liked men. Was this talking about me? Imperial Father summoned me and reprimanded me in a fit of irritation. He punished me to kneel in the ancestral shrine. I knelt for 3 days and 3 nights without making a sound. In the end, he couldn't do anything about it. His head hurt, and when it hurt, he would hit his head against the wall. Go and screamed on the side. Even the most expensive incense couldn't stop his crazy actions. He was in pain, so he didn't care about me, and I also didn't care about him. Originally, the relationship between father and son was weak. Ever since Mother passed away, we probably didn't even have the basic greetings between us. The Ministry of Rights began to talk among themselves and give me women. How laughable. Did they think that by doing this, I would be obedient? I simply built a court for the women that were given to me. The court was called Destined to Live Alone. These women were sent here willingly. They should have understood from the first day that they were sent here what destined to live alone meant. Since they were willing, I couldn't be bothered to care. If they dared to coincidentally meet me in the garden, I would kill 1 or 2 of them. After a long time, everyone should understand. Don't coincidentally meet me. I can only be someone they look up to. Later, even the Ministry of Rights was disheartened and stopped sending me all kinds of beauties on their own initiative. They accepted their fate, and they laughably believed those rumors. Think that their unattainable crown prince of Shinjo, was a homosexual. Haha, cut off your sister's sleeve. Since these people were so stupid, he would just let them be. After the new year, Sangzhou's Emperor Rong Li came to visit. Imperial Father handed over all state affairs to me. He was drunk in the palace all day long. His hair wasn't thin, and sometimes he didn't wear clothes. He just sat there like an idiot for 3 days and 2 nights. After I finished discussing with Sangzhou's emperor, we decided to join hands and go to the place where zombies were rampant. We, who were trapped in the capital, had no way out. If we fought, we might have a chance to survive. If we retreated, there was no way out. 1 month later, the news of me eloping with Sangzhou's emperor spread all over the 3 states. It was very strange. That day, when Rong Li and I were riding on the Pingjin Prairie, he suddenly stopped. He suddenly stopped and pointed to the distant sky where the clouds of fire were connected. Look there. I followed his gaze. It was bright red. At first glance, it looked like the mountain fire had blown red. The red was abnormally dazzling. There's nothing. I picked up the wine pot hanging casually and took a sip. What did you see? I think I saw a woman standing there and waving at us. I find her expressionless face somewhat familiar. I couldn't help but laugh. I teased. You miss your wife? No. Rong Li shook his head. I suddenly understood. I raised my hand and threw the wine pot at him. No wonder. Everyone thought that I had eloped with you. Why didn't you, an old bachelor, marry someone? Why didn't you marry her? How would I know? I felt a little uncomfortable. I wanted to suppress the anger in my heart forever. I whipped my horse and galloped forward. If we win this time, we can stay on the prairie for the rest of our lives. Then, I spurred my horse far away. I didn't hear Rong Li mutter, "What if we lose?" Chapter 57:14. The war in the grassland of Pingjin lasted for half a year. In the end, the grassland was filled with withered bones and weeds. The entire grassland was covered in wounds. Our allied forces won the war in a Pyrrhic victory. The corpse puppet army was exterminated by us, but the remaining soldiers didn't seem to fare any better. Rongli's illness was getting worse. Sometimes he would lie in bed for 3 days and 2 nights. He rarely woke up. That day when I went to visit him, he woke up groggily and glanced at me. His originally handsome face now looked skinny and out of shape. When he looked at me, his eyes seemed to be lifeless and on the verge of drying up. I seem to have had a very long dream. "We won," he said softly with a hoarse voice. "We already won." I walked forward quickly and held his hand tightly. "Are you dumb? We won 10 days ago. We can go back very soon." "No." He coughed weakly and tried to sit up. I quickly extended my hand and helped him up with another servant. "Are you hungry?" I saw the flowers and grass. As far as the eye can see, everything is jade green, growing and multiplying endlessly, incomparably gorgeous. I recalled what the doctor had said to me in private. His Majesty might pass away soon. If he were to wake up again, it would be a final burst of consciousness. "Your Highness, you have to seize the opportunity and say what you have to say." I clutched his hand tightly, as if I wanted the invisible will to continue supporting me. "Didn't you say that you wanted to go to the sea of forgetfulness after everything was over?" "Yes, I saw it." He suddenly turned and held my hand. There seemed to be a beam of light in his dim eyes. I saw the boundless sea of forgetfulness. There was really everything in the dream. I even saw a huge ship sailing towards me. I vaguely saw someone on the boat, waving at me nonstop. It was a pity that I couldn't see her face clearly. She should be here to pick me up. I silently turned my head and hurriedly hid the tears in my eyes. "You are tired. Have a good rest." "I'm not going to rest." He shook his head and grabbed my hand with all his strength. "In the future, there will be plenty of time to rest. Why don't you talk to me for a while more?" "I'm afraid I won't have the chance to talk to you like this again." "Nonsense. An evil person like you will naturally bring calamity to the human world. You will bring calamity to the world for thousands of years." He laughed. Even his coughing seemed weak and half dead. "Yen, promise me one thing." "Go ahead." I didn't even dare to turn around. I was afraid that once I turned around, I wouldn't be able to control my emotions and tears would flow out of my eyes. I was afraid that I would break down in front of him. That would be too ugly. "When I die, you can bury me on the grassland. There's no need to bring me back." He held my hand and sighed softly. "I want to be able to see the boundless sky when I raise my eyes. I have a feeling that someone is waiting for me in the sky. Yen, can you promise me? I think I may never forget in my lifetime." He was dressed in a moon-white unlined garment, and his eyes were filled with a hint of death. I recalled the first time I'd met him. He was wearing a crimson armor and riding a horse. That night, I'd sat next to him in silence and watched him toss and turn for half the night. He'd coughed a few times. He'd stopped moving in the second half of the night. I sat next to his bed in a daze for a long time. Then I lay there and cried for half the night as I watched his body gradually turn cold. "What do you think? You always say what you think every time." "I still think that you won't die. I still think that we shouldn't live like this for the rest of our lives. You, on the other hand, didn't care when things were half done. You left me to clean up the mess. In the end, I was the only one who had to bear everything silently. Then, I followed his will and buried him on the Pingjin grassland. The day I buried him, the sky was especially bright. There was a red glow in the distance. I raised my head to take a look. I didn't know if it was a hallucination or an illusion, but I seemed to see a blurry figure sitting on a cloud coming to pick him up. If I could, I really want to go with them. I would travel the rest of my life and not have to worry about the things in front of me. However, I still have my share of responsibility to bear. It took me about 100 years to slowly rebuild the devastated continents of the 3 provinces. I became the only monarch in the 3 prefectures, but I would always wake up in the middle of a dream. I would sit at the head of my bed in a daze, night after night, until dawn. It was too strange. All these years, I seemed to have had a very long dream on and off. The dream became more and more realistic and clear. I could even hear our laughter coming out of the dream. It sounded like we were having a good time. Who was it? Who was it that was laughing so happily? It sounded like my own laughter. It was strange. I hadn't laughed for almost 100 years. What is laughter? I have long forgotten what it is, so why am I laughing so happily? Hudaquan was very old. Every step he took was very strenuous. Two young eunuchs would often have to help him walk. He walked unsteadily. Did your majesty stay up all night again? Hudaquan sighed and asked the two young eunuchs to help me change my clothes. The flowers in the imperial garden are blooming very well today. Your majesty, do you want to go out for a walk? What's the point of walking back and forth by yourself? I shook my head. I want to forge something. Let's do it for a while. Hudaquan accompanied me in the hall. He sat quietly on the side and watched me forge a small golden sword. His eyes were slightly moist. Every year, your majesty, around the New Year festival, you would forge a small sword for children to protect themselves with. It has been like this every year. It has been dozens of years, but you have never given one away. I looked at the small sword floating in the fire and suddenly smiled. Hudaquan, I always feel like I have a son. I accompanied him on horseback and archery, treading mountains and rivers, traversing thousands of rivers and mountains. I was immersed in my dreams. Sometimes, I didn't even want to wake up. When I woke up, I would cry bitterly. I felt that I might have missed out on the most important thing in my life. A young eunuch ran in and knelt on the ground. With a trembling voice, he said, "Your Majesty, the retired emperor has passed away." My hand trembled slightly. Hudaquan supported me with his trembling hands. I staggered a step and tilted my head to look at the clear blue sky in the distance. In the end, I really became a loner. I had no other relatives. Chapter 57:15. Ixion, look at that. That little trash is copying the scripture of peace very seriously after knowing that you're injured. Uffed. Shi Yongqian raised her hand and covered her mouth with a handkerchief. Her eyes flashed with a hint of mockery. Isn't that funny, Ixion? Qin Xen stood indifferently at the door and looked coldly at the scene in the room. The girl who could not move her limbs and could only turn her head slightly. She was biting the pen in her mouth and writing the scripture of peace word by word. Don't you think it's funny? She's clearly a piece of trash who can only lie down. Yet she wants to show off in front of you. It's the little handmaiden beside her who has to grind the paper, wipe her sweat, and flip the pages from time to time. She's probably just looking for something to do. After all, lying there all the time without being able to do anything was too depressing for a girl who always wanted to excel in everything. Shi Yongqian giggled and covered her mouth with a handkerchief. Qin Xen glanced at her and did not know what was so funny. Ixion, don't tell me you've really fallen for this little trash? What a joke. Qin Xen was very impatient with this woman's retarded probing. But look, after you saved her, she seems to think of you as her sky and thinks of you in everything. How can I fall for someone whose all four limbs are useless? Qin Xen sneered and spat out a cold sentence. She's just a little pet that I picked up on the way home. Qin Xen threw this sentence and turned to leave. Shi Yongqian smiled and took 2 steps forward and reached out to stop him. Ixion, wait. She stomped her feet coquettishly. I think that this little pet of yours is really annoying. I don't like it when she copies the scripture of peace for you. What do you want? Recently, his father had been trying to win over the Shi family. In order to make second Miss Shi happy, Qin Xen was willing to coax her a little. She's an eyesore to me. Second Miss Shi giggled. What do you say I tear up that scripture of peace? For some reason, Qin Xen's heart skipped a beat. Then he said the 2 words that he regretted the most in his life expressionlessly. Up to you. Arbor found it very pleasurable to copy the Sutra of Peace, because she finally had something else to do. She didn't have to lie there day and night, staring blankly at the ceiling. Aunt Hui, who rarely took care of her, was very dedicated and willing to help her. Finally, she was able to derive a trace of pleasure from copying. No, it was power. Arbor didn't know what was going on when the second daughter of the Shi family kicked her door open and barged in with her men. It was only when the 2 vicious maidservants by Shi Yongqian's side kicked away the inkstone by her hand and stepped on the stack of paper that Shi Yongqian was holding. Only then did she realize that the second daughter of the Sure family was here to pick a fight with her again. These days, she had been coming to find fault with her. No matter how she looked at her, she didn't like her at all. Now that she was hiding in her room and quietly copying the Sutra of Peace, was that an eyesore to her? As Xiao Mu gazed at the pile of scriptures that had been crushed to pieces by their feet, Xiao Mu felt a bit of sorrow in her heart. She had spent a lot of time writing it word by word. It had been a long, long time since she had done something so meaningful. "You're in the way." The two vicious maidservants by the second daughter of the Sure family kicked her over. Aunt Hui hurriedly ran over to help her, but was whipped in the back by the second daughter of the Sure family. She fell to the ground and didn't get up again. Aunt Hui, Arbor called out in panic. "So noisy." Sure Yongqian scolded with a cold expression. "How dare a little bug make such a harsh sound? Teach her a lesson." The two vicious maidservants walked up with bad intentions and kicked Arbor hard in the stomach. The other person squatted down and grabbed Arbor's yellow hair. She reached out to grab a packet of medicinal powder and poured it into her mouth. The bitter and spicy taste filled her throat. Cough, cough, cough. Arbor coughed heavily. Her originally crisp voice became hoarse. Every word she said was like rolling over the tip of a knife. It was especially painful. "Enough." Qin Xian frowned and dragged Shi Yongqian away from Arbor. Arbor lay on the ground and turned her little face with some difficulty, trying to see the young master's expression clearly. It turned out that he had been standing at the door all along, watching everything that was happening in front of him. Arbor's slightly warm heart sank bit by bit. As expected, she was just a pitiful little bug that the young master had picked up along the way. What a joke. She still had strange fantasies. She always felt that this person could treat her like a normal person. Well, it turned out that it was just wishful thinking. Ever since Shi Yongqian sent her on the ship to Sichuan, she wanted to die, but didn't succeed in the end. In the next few days, the young master of the Omega Kitoku kept staring at her as if he was sick, guarding against any suicidal moves. Actually, she was now being whipped by Second Miss Shi and didn't even have the strength to raise her head. What else could a pitiful little bug who couldn't even raise her head do? She didn't know why this Qin Xian always stayed by her side and kept muttering something, but she couldn't hear a single word. As her body got better day by day, one day, she could suddenly move her fingers. On this day, the second young master happily held her hand and said softly to her, "Xiao Xiao, your body is about to recover. When your wrist can move again, can you copy a paragraph of the Peace Sutra and give it to me?" Arbor didn't say anything. Her eyes were still and lifeless. After a few more days, she could force herself to walk a few steps with the help of the wall. The second young master happily handed her a pen and paper and helped her to sit down at the table. "Xiao Xiao, you can copy it." After an hour, Arbor didn't move. After 2 hours, she was still the same. After several hours, there was only a blob of ink on the paper, but she lay on the table and fell asleep, copying something as ridiculous as the Peace Sutra. The word peace was long gone from her. She shouldn't ask for such a luxurious thing anymore. Anyway, she didn't have peace and happiness anymore that day. Arbor didn't know that Qin Xian stood beside her and was in a daze for a long time. She didn't know when she woke up. He walked forward, wanted to carry her and put her on the bed to sleep, but she was still very repulsed by his approach in her dreams. Only then did the second young master realize that there were many things that you couldn't turn back when you wanted to, but he was still unwilling. He tried his best to salvage the situation. When Suyi dreamed about it, he would occasionally think about it. If I hadn't treated her like this back then, would everything have been different? Chapter 57:16. He's over there. Chase after him. Urgent shouts suddenly came from the corner of the street, causing a small commotion and panic. "Don't worry about anything else. Just kill him." Flustered and exasperated voices mixed with the shocked cries of the people on the street as they chased after him like a dog jumping over a wall. The small merchants and peddlers who had set up their stalls were hurriedly packing up their things. Suddenly, They were rudely bumped into by the soldiers who were chasing after them on the street. Immediately, there was a sudden commotion. At this time, a luxurious carriage with pearls slowly drove out of the long street and headed in this direction. The curtains of the carriage were made of the highest quality ice silk, and there were fist-sized pearls hanging from the four corners of the roof. The ice silk curtains slowly fluttered in the wind. The carriage jolted slightly, and the carriage driver hurriedly pulled on the reins, not noticing a shadow flashing behind him. In an instant, a cold wind carried a figure nimbly into the carriage. A bright dagger was pressed against his throat in a second. Don't make a sound. If you make a sound, you'll cut young master's beautiful little face. The red-clothed youth was 13 or 14 years old. His black eyes flickered, and his face was like a peach blossom. His pitch-black hair was raised high, and his forehead hair was scattered, but he was full of vigor. The young master sitting in the carriage was wearing a snow-white, long-sleeved robe and was flawless. Even when the dagger was pressed against his throat, he still didn't panic, and his face was calm. His gaze fell on the red-clothed youth, and he nodded imperceptibly. Huh. Although the dagger in the red-clothed youth's hand was still pressed against his throat, his eyes couldn't help but roll. This person actually didn't lose his head out of fear and scream like a normal person. With such a calm and composed demeanor, it was hard to imagine that he was a young master from the Southern Wind restaurant. Who are you? Seeing that he didn't answer, the youth rolled his eyes again. Are you going to Governor Wong's manor for an appointment? TSK, TSK, TSK. How can such a graceful and outstanding beauty be willing to become Governor Wong's plaything? Do you want me to save young master from the fire and water? Stop the carriage. There is a burst of noise outside, as well as the reply of the carriage driver. Soldiers, we're hurrying to Governor Wong's manor. We can't miss the time. Stop the car when I tell you to. Cut the crap. The red-robed youth frowned slightly, thinking about how to escape. Suddenly, he felt his wrist tighten, and he was inexplicably pulled to the side of the white-clothed young master. This strength didn't seem to belong to someone who was weak. While the young boy was puzzled, he saw the man quickly lift up a partition and shove him in. It turned out that there was a hidden compartment in the carriage. If one were to curl up inside, it would be just enough to fit a thin and weak person. If he was slightly fatter, he might not be able to dodge it. The curtain of the carriage was suddenly lifted by someone, and the interior of the carriage could be seen at a glance. A young master in a snow-white robe was holding a cup of tea in his hand. He glanced at them indifferently. The coachman was very angry. I already told you that my young master is alone in the carriage. We still have to rush to Governor Wong's residence. If we are late to the banquet, you will have to bear the consequences. At this moment, the man who had lifted the curtain to save his life seemed a bit embarrassed. He hurriedly cupped his hands towards young Master Shui. My apologies, my apologies. Then I won't disturb young master any further. Young Master Shui Yi's eyebrows didn't move at all. He only slightly lowered his head. In just a few breaths, the curtain of the carriage was lifted again. The man in the lead looked around the carriage again with a sharp gaze. After finding nothing, he slammed the curtain down. Let's go. Preposterous. Preposterous. These people simply don't put the governor in their eyes. They actually dared to check their carriage again and again. Who did they think they were? The entire border stronghold was under the command of Governor Wong. These people actually dared to not give the governor face. When they returned, they would definitely find a chance to report them. The coachman cursed as he waved his whip. The wheels of the carriage started to turn again. Young Master Shui, he lifted the partition and pulled out the young master in red. He looked at him with a faint smile. If I didn't guess wrong, you should be Princess Wu Shuang, who is wanted by the entire city. The young boy in red wrinkled his nose and looked him up and down. Who are you? You have cultivation. You don't seem like a little boy from the South Wind restaurant. Young Master Shui, he smiled faintly and raised his eyebrows. He threw 2 words at him. Guess. Guess your head. The young boy in red glared at him unhappily and asked curiously, Do you know how much the bounty is? I heard that it has risen to 1,000,000 spirit coins. If you have accurate information about the princess, you can sell it for 50,000 spirit coins. Wu Shuang giggled. Then why didn't you hand me over just now? Young Master Shui, he smiled at her. People of my generation do things according to their preferences. I wasn't willing to hand you over just now, but it doesn't mean that I don't annoy you now. If you continue to argue with me, we will reach the governor's mansion soon. At that time, no matter how high your cultivation is, it will be difficult for you to escape. Wu Shuang was a little angry. She gritted her teeth. I know that Wang Ringue has a banquet tonight. How about I disguise myself as your servant and go with you? Young Master Shui, he smiled faintly. Do you think the people in the governor's mansion are all fools? I'm just a servant of the South Wind restaurant. It is already a big deal to make an exception and attend the banquet. How many pairs of eyes are watching me? If I take you with me, do you think that your life is too long, or do you think that I am not stupid enough? Princess Wu Shuang snorted. I see that you have a little brain, so I thought that you might be able to help me a little. Forget it. Since you don't want to take me in, then I will think of a way myself. Seeing that they were about to reach the governor's mansion after crossing this street. If they didn't leave now, they wouldn't be able to leave after a while. Before leaving, Wu Shuang turned around and flirtatiously lifted his chin. Beauty, don't worry. Since I said that I would save you from the fire and water, I naturally won't go back on my words. Wait for me to come back and pick you up. Young Master Shui, he couldn't help but laugh. After saying that frivolously, Wu Shuang quickly flashed out of the carriage. Although her figure was fast, the carriage driver was shocked by her. He hurriedly pulled the reins and turned to open the curtain. Young master, that person just now. Heavens, when did that person sneak onto the carriage? The carriage driver realized that he didn't notice at all. Could it be that those vicious people who blocked the carriage were chasing after him? Don't make a fuss. Young Master Shui, he said faintly. Continue to walk forward. Just pretend that nothing happened. Hearing this, the carriage driver hurriedly nodded. Yes, yes, young master. The curtain of the carriage was lowered again. A cold, murderous intent flashed through Fu San's eyes. Going to the governor's mansion tonight, his first task was to take the opportunity to go to Wang Ringue's study and collect all the evidence of his crimes. Chapter 57:17. He couldn't allow such a person to continue living in the frontier fortress. If he really couldn't find any evidence, he didn't mind making this person disappear from the world. It was a way to solve the problem once and for all. The starry night shone as the moon waned. That night, Governor Wang Ringue held a banquet in the back residence to entertain everyone. This person's status in Pang City Fortress was equivalent to that of a local tyrant. Who would dare to not come after being invited by him? The rich and gentry gathered in the hall, all of them glowing with health and fawning over him. They had also brought many beautiful young men and women to the governor on this trip. It was said that the governor liked beautiful people the most. He could control 3 to 5 people in a night and was very brave. After 3 rounds of wine, everyone started to dance. Just as they were drunk and in a daze, they heard an explosion from the back study. Then flames shot up into the sky. Wang Ringue jumped up from his seat with a face full of anger. He opened his mouth and shouted, "Who dares to cause trouble in my residence? Quickly go and catch them." Just as everyone was hurriedly investigating the suspicious people in the residence, a stray arrow flew from the sky and pierced through Governor Wang's chest. Everyone was dumbfounded. Many people scrambled and screamed, "Governor Wang has been assassinated. Quickly come and save him." In the distance, everyone saw Governor Wang fall heavily to the ground like a collapsing statue. His head was tilted to the side, and he didn't move at all. The soldiers rushed out and pulled out their swords as they roared. "Someone assassinated the governor. Catch them and cut them into pieces." And Wu Shuang sat on the eaves and smiled as she looked at the man who had rushed out of the back door of the study. He was in a somewhat sorry state. Not only was his face covered in dirt, but his snow-white clothes were also covered in dust. It was so dirty that it was impossible to tell his original color. "You set the fire?" Fusen coughed heavily a few times. He had been choked by the thick smoke just now and felt that his throat was very dry. It was like smoke was coming out of his mouth. That's right, that's right. Princess Wushuang smiled and shook her head. She turned her eyes and smiled at him. How long will it take for someone like you to find evidence of his crime? The evidence of this person's crime is too numerous to record. He would die sooner or later anyway. It doesn't matter if he dies early or late. Fu Xin heard the sound of footsteps in the distance and couldn't help but smile bitterly. He died quickly, but our situation now is difficult. The entire Viceroy Manor had at least a few thousand elite soldiers, if not tens of thousands. 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. Now they could only run. The governor's soldiers and Wushuang. Wushuang seemed to be very familiar with the place. She led Third Fu forward and occasionally turned back to shout at him. Hold on tight. We're almost there. Wushuang, Wushuang, thousands of Wushuang chased them flews to Stushwang. Wushuang ordered. Wushuang and Wushuang jumped into the water with a splash. The soldiers chased after them and released the power of the 5 spirits into the water. The 5 spirits of different colors blasted the water surface and formed small waterspouts. Fu San and Wushuang jumped into the water and buried themselves deep in the water. The turbulent spiritual energy on the surface of the water couldn't disturb the 2 of them. But the whirlpool was huge. Wushuang and Wushuang struggled for a while, but they were still pushed toward the center of the water. Wushuang turned her head and saw that the man's body was sinking. It seemed that something was wrong. She looked again and saw that there was an arrow in the man's back. He must have been shot just now. A layer of black blood came out of the wound. He was poisoned. Wushuang was shocked. She couldn't help but feel confused. This guy didn't say anything when he was injured. He was still holding on until now after entering the water. Wushuang hurriedly kicked the water and swam to his side. She grabbed his body and stuffed a detoxification pill into his mouth. Wushuang dragged the man and swam for a while. She popped her head out and coughed a few mouthfuls of water. She then pulled Third Fu out of the water and dragged him to the shore. He couldn't stay in the water for too long. It was time to go ashore first. However, the soldiers of Governor Wang's manor might not let them off so easily. If those people came along the riverbank and went downstream, they might find the 2 of them. Therefore, he had to run a little further. Wushuang carried him on her back. She held her breath and ran dozens of miles in the night. After finding a relatively secluded cave, they dragged the man in and settled him down. That night, Fu San's wound turned red. He was also in a daze from the fever. Wushuang kept feeding him water. She took out all the antidote pills in her inner world. She didn't know which one could cure the poison in his body, so she fed him all the antidote pills. The next morning, the man's fever disappeared magically, but he started to have diarrhea. He ran out 7 or 8 times in the morning. When he came back for the 9th time, he looked at her with an indescribable expression. Can you not mix the laxative into the antidote pills? Give it to me. Wushuang pouted. People who fight wars don't care about trifles. I see that more than 10 antidote pills can't cure your fever and wake you up. Maybe you can get better if some of the poison in your stomach is removed. Luckily, you are not an elixir master. No, otherwise, not many people can escape from your hands. Fu Xin rolled his eyes speechlessly. How could she cheat people like this? He was cured of the poison, but he was about to collapse from diarrhea. I am in Wushuang. What about you? Fu San turned and saw the little girl sitting at the entrance of the cave. She was holding a pile of firewood. She looked back and grinned at him. Fu San, the shadow guard of the emperor. Wushuang suddenly realized. Oh, the emperor sent you here. Are you going back to the capital after solving the problem here? Fu San nodded. Aren't you going back? I'm not going back. I've solved Wang Ringue. There are still many things in the fortress that I need to take care of. The entire fortress has been immersed in the tyranny of the Wang family all these years. It's time to tidy it up. We have to let the people in the fortress live a comfortable life. She threw the roasted pheasant to him with a smile. I'll treat you. Fu San took a bite. After a few years, he always felt that this was the most delicious thing in the world. How could it compare to the delicious half of the roasted pheasant from back then? Then I'll stay and help you. It won't be too late to leave after a while. The girl looked back and smiled at him. She nodded excitedly. This place is much more fun than that lifeless place in the capital. I can take you to ride horses and shoot arrows around. The endless scenery is at the dangerous peak. I'll take you to see it. Chapter 57:18. The princess has returned victorious. The princess has returned to court. The princess is truly the goddess of war of the divine prefecture. She is invincible and undefeatable. That's right, that's right. The commoners lined the streets to welcome Princess Wushuang and her entourage, their faces filled with joy. His Majesty's reward arrived at the King of Jinyuan's residence the next day. There were countless gems, pearls, silk, and satin, but Wushuang could not bring herself to be happy. On the day she returned to the capital, she heard the rumors of third young Master Fu's engagement. The next day, she shut herself in her residence and sulked for 2 days. A man's mouth was the most untrustworthy thing in the world. He even said that he would travel thousands of mountains and rivers with her, treading through snow in winter and spring. She actually believed a man's lousy mouth? How preposterous! Princess, I've finished gathering information these past 2 days. I've gathered all the information regarding the third young master of Marquis, Chong Ningho, and Miss Bao. And Yang, who was dressed in black, spoke with a serious expression. When reporting, Yang lowered his head slightly, his eyes, eyebrows, and nose not moving at all. His entire person was meticulous. Wushuang sat up from the brocade couch and slammed the short table beside her. Bring it up, bring it up. And Yang waved his hand, and 2 servants immediately brought in a box of papers. Princess Wushuang blinked, the corners of her eyes twitching imperceptibly. There's so much information? Yes, Your Highness. Everything about the third young master of Marquis, Chong Ningho's childhood, has been recorded. Princess Wushuang expressionlessly took out a booklet and flipped through it. It was written in the booklet that third young Master Fu had been drinking and chatting with people on a certain day and year. Every line was written very clearly. Even the events of third young Master Fu wetting his bed at 2 and climbing a tree at 3 were recorded clearly. Princess Wushuang could not help but cover her face with her hands. This subordinate of hers was thorough and meticulous in his work. She did not know whether to praise or reprimand him. Have you read it? Princess Wushuang asked expressionlessly. I've read it all once. Wushuang breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. Pick out the important ones and report them to me. How could she possibly look through such a box of information? It was not like she had nothing better to do, yes. And Yang cupped his fists in greeting and then continued. After my investigation, the third young master of Marquis Ning's estate and Miss Bao Sweeping have only met 2 or 3 times in the past few years. I've only seen him a few times from afar at places like family banquets. The news of the engagement this time was released by the second wife of Marquis Ning's estate, Madame Bao. Third young Master Fu was completely unaware of this. Wushuang curled her lips. He was tricked because he was stupid. Yes, and Yang nodded. This third young Master Fu ignored the rumors after hearing them. He is so stupid. And Wushuang curled her lips again and said, he just can't be bothered. Moreover, he might even be concerned about Miss Bao's reputation. Oof. And Wushuang listened to Yang talk for a while more before she sent him away and went to sleep. She was still displeased. Chong Ningho Marquis Manor must be very chaotic to have been schemed against and caused such a big engagement. In the middle of the night, she was in a daze. She heard Yang say sternly outside the window, how dare you? You can't go in. My princess won't see you. If you don't go and report, how do you know Shuang won't see me? A laugh sounded. Wushuang shuddered and opened her eyes. She was naturally familiar with this voice. Third Fu was so daring to barge into the king of Jinyuan's estate in the middle of the night. Humph! Who gave him the courage to barge into the king's estate in the middle of the night? She only needed to shout, and the hundreds and thousands of guards of the king's estate would be able to teach this stinky man a lesson. And Yang's voice was emotionless and cold as usual. The princess said herself that she doesn't want to see you. And Wu Shuang was puzzled. Strange, did I say that I didn't want to see Third Fu? Shuang won't do as you say. Third young Master Fu tilted his head confidently. I don't believe you. If you don't let me in to see her, it means that you have a guilty conscience. You have a guilty conscience. Your whole family has a guilty conscience. Soon, the sound of swords clashing could be heard from outside. Wu Shuang understood that Third Fu must have wanted to barge in. After being stopped by Nyang, the two of them must have started fighting. Stinky man, she hadn't even settled the matter of her engagement, and now he was sneaking up on her. Who would see him? Wu Shuang was so angry that she simply closed the window and went to sleep. She couldn't be bothered with the two people fighting outside. The next day, Nyang came to Wu Shuang with dark circles under his eyes. Wu Shuang was eating breakfast at that time. When she saw Nyang like this, she almost spat out her porridge. What's going on? Yesterday, the third young master of the Marquis, Chang Ningho's estate, came to look for the princess. I stopped him. And Yang replied honestly. He didn't embellish the story and didn't hide anything. He clearly recounted the interaction between him and the third young master of the Marquis, Chang Ningho's estate, to the princess. Princess, are you still going to close the door today? Wu Shuang nodded. It wasn't easy for her to steal a few days of leisure time. She didn't want to waste it among those women. With nothing to do, she flipped through the books on the art of war and asked someone to play a song for her. The whole afternoon passed by leisurely. The next day, when Yang came to see her, there was a large bruise on his face. Wu Shuang couldn't help but chuckle. He hit you. He's not much better himself. And Yang snorted, Don't worry, princess. I won't let him near you. Wu Shuang smiled and shook her head. She thought to herself, Actually, it's not a big deal if you let him in and say a few words to me. The rumors about the engagement between the third young master of the Marquis, Chang Ningho's estate, and Miss Bao spread more and more violently. Wu Shuang wasn't as angry as before, and Yang looked even angrier than she was. He kept Third Fu outside and didn't let him in. That night, the commotion was so great that the entire king of Jinyuan's residence was alarmed. Wu Shuang thought to herself, This Third Fu is really getting braver with every setback. Not only did he sneak into the residence in the middle of the night to be a thief, he even dared to make such a big commotion. Did he really think that there was no one in the king of Jinyuan's residence? Just as she was thinking, a head suddenly poked in from below the window. Under the silver moonlight, Third Fu, with a bruised and swollen face, waved at her pitifully. Quickly pull me up, Wu Shuang. Who wants to pull you up? It's more like kicking you out. Wu Shuang thought to herself. That's how she acted. Chapter 57:19. Before Wu Shuang could kick his head, third young master Fu quickly exclaimed, Shuang, please spare me. He moved his body clumsily from the window and hurriedly jumped in through the window. Wu Shuang looked at his stupid appearance and could not help but suppress the smile on her lips. She still had a fierce expression on her face. Who allowed you to enter my room? Get out. No, don't hit me. Third Fu quickly rolled over and hugged Wu Shuang's legs. He pressed her down on the stool and said in a small voice, Shuang, we haven't seen each other for a long time. Don't hit me the moment you see me. Get out. No, I won't. Where was the young man in white? Was he in his prime? The third Fu she met at the fortress was a fake, wasn't he? This was a shameless plaything. Third young master Fu quickly carried Princess Wu Shuang and got up. He quickly ran to the small room and pulled the door open. He grabbed her hand and swore, Shuang, don't believe the rumors outside. They're all nonsense. I can swear to God that I only like Shuang in my life. If I want to marry a wife, I will marry Shuang. Although Wu Shuang was brave, she was still embarrassed by his bold and unrestrained words. Get out. This stupid man was shameless. He wanted to trick the little girl again. Shuang, I miss you day and night and can't sleep at night. When can you get out? Wu Shuang was so angry that she reached out to hit him. Then why don't you explain? The rumors outside are so ugly. Rumors will only make things worse. It's useless to explain. So you just let them do whatever they want? Wu Shuang was so angry that her face turned red. Third young master Fu suddenly pounced over, pressed her down, and kissed her. Princess Wu Shuang was a bit stunned. When she came back to her senses, she angrily pushed him away. She wiped her mouth and hit him angrily. "You scoundrel," Third Fu said pitifully. Shuang, I'm not ignoring the rumors. Instead, he wants to use a method to completely erase the rumors once and for all. Don't think that after kissing her and talking about serious matters, it means that what happened just now doesn't exist. Wu Shuang glared at him. Third young master Fu chuckled, grabbed her hand, and pulled her onto his lap. "Don't move," he whispered in her ear. Shuang, I'm heading to Li City to kill zombies. When I return from the Battle of Li City, I will ask His Majesty to marry you. At that time, all the rumors will be dispelled." Wu Shuang pursed her lips, her face filled with displeasure. Shuang. He reached out and rubbed her face. "Can you be happier? Did you just let your stepmother spread the rumors about the engagement?" She was a little angry just thinking about it. It was obviously not true, but these days, those messy rumors spread more and more like it was true. Third Fu chuckled, rested his head on her forehead, and whispered, "Once I leave the capital, this rumor will naturally disappear." After all, he wasn't even in the capital. No matter how many rumors were spread, no one would believe them. So what if third young master Fu and Miss Bao were together under the moonlight? That was based on the premise that he was in the capital. Shuang, I will miss you very, very much. Third Fu lowered his head and kissed her face. "You have to miss me too, okay?" Princess Wu Shuang had been on the battlefield for so many years, but she had never blushed like today. She only felt that her face was so hot that it could be used to cook porridge. This stinky man, it was all his fault for messing up her emotions. He was so annoying. Princess Wu Shuang pushed the man's face away and asked angrily, "What did you do today? Why is there such a big commotion outside?" Third Fu pursed his lips and said gloomily, "Your subordinate, Anyang, is very old-fashioned. He is so young, but his temperament is like that of an old man. No matter what I say, he won't listen. He won't listen to anyone's opinion at all. He keeps stopping us from seeing each other. I'm so annoyed by him." Princess Wu Shuang looked at him expressionlessly. "Anyang has been by my side since I was young. He's like my own younger brother." Okay. Then I will also treat him like my own younger brother in the future." Third young master Fu pursed his lips again. "Don't change the topic." Princess Wu Shuang poked him, annoyed and amused. "What did you do to ruin things?" "I just heard the housekeeper shouting outside." Third Fu blinked and put on a very innocent expression. "It's nothing. It's just that I entered the king of Zhenyuan's residence alone. If I wanted to see you, I had no choice but to ask a friend for help." "Boo." Third young master Fu said seriously, "I brought 5 or 6 golems over to play with Anyang." At the same time, there was a commotion outside the princess's bedroom. More than a dozen guards of the king of Zhenyuan's residence were fighting with 5 or 6 golems. Anyang's sword turned sharply and slashed at a golem, but the impact caused his arm to feel slightly sore and numb. Princess Wu Shuang pushed open the window and saw that the outside was brightly lit. The sounds of fighting here had really alarmed the housekeeper and the guards of the king of Zhenyuan's residence. She couldn't help but be speechless. "You made such a big scene. Do you want my father to kill you?" Third young master Fu glanced at the princess pitifully. Shuang, you must help me. Where did you get these golems?" Princess Wu Shuang's eyelids twitched slightly. She already had an answer in her heart. "Your Highness the Crown Prince." Third young master Fu hurriedly called out, "Your Highness the Crown Prince lent them to me to woo my wife." Your Highness the Crown Prince said that back then, the relatives of the Crown Princess also stopped him from going forward and did not allow him to see the Crown Princess. So, Your Highness the Crown Prince released many golems for the relatives of the Crown Princess to fight with. When I mentioned this to Your Highness the Crown Prince, He lent me so many golems without hesitation. Third young Master Fu's expression was full of admiration. Your Highness is really my sworn brother. There's no doubt about it. He immediately helped his brother when he was in trouble. They were definitely blood-related brothers. Princess Wushuang looked at the sky, speechlessly. Outside, the housekeeper hurried over with a group of guards. He asked in a low voice through the window, "Princess, do you need my help?" Princess Wushuang hurriedly said, "No need, housekeeper. Those golems outside belong to your Highness the Crown Prince. It's fine if you beat them up, but don't really cripple them." Housekeeper, was our Highness so unreliable? In the middle of the night, he let so many golems follow that little bastard from the Marquis, Chang Ningho's residence to cause trouble at the king of Jinyuan's residence. I understand. The housekeeper bowed and left. He pretended to shout, "Quickly throw out the intruders of my residence." Third young Master Fu looked at Princess Wushuang with a smile and lowered his head to kiss her cheek. "Shuang Shuang, when I return, I'll marry you and make you my wife." Fu. Princess Wushuang's cheeks were bright red as she stared blankly at his figure jumping out of the window. Chapter 5720. Third Fu carried his son with one arm and held his wife with the other as they strolled down Changlesao Street. They would be going to the Holy Region in 2 days. Actually, they had already bought most of the things they needed to buy. There wasn't much to bring. Jojo Star Region had everything, so they could just buy whatever they wanted. It was probably just to make some preparations before they left. Wu Shuang, on the other hand, was quite interested in shopping. She looked around and couldn't help but want to buy whatever she saw. Fu Yin lay on his father's shoulder, his big black eyes following his mother around. "Big brother taught me 2 moves yesterday. They're very powerful. I tried it out with Little 8, and he was knocked into the river." His father's mouth twitched. Little 8 was a big defensive turtle that his son had recently received. He had thick skin and could take hits. "Father, are we going back to Marquis Changningho's estate tomorrow? I can try it on Fu Qiu and the others." "Just forget it." His father looked helpless. "Fu Qiu and the others hide whenever they see you. Don't you know? Why are they hiding from me?" Fu Yin really didn't know. He pouted unhappily. "Big brother said that we can only improve if we learn from each other. You won't be able to achieve much by hiding at home all day long." Princess Wushuang bought 2 sticks of candied haws. She gave one to her son and ate the other. Hearing this, she couldn't help but laugh. Little Ball is right. Children should go out to learn. That's how they can grow. Third Fu was speechless. He carried his son and held his wife's hand as they strolled around. "Every time we go back to Changningho's estate, there's such a mess. If you don't want to go back, then we won't." "Haha, how can we not go back? If we don't go back, your stepmother will cry and complain that we're not filial." Fu Yin angrily took a bite of the candied haws. "I don't like that, madam. When she smiles, it feels fake. From top to bottom, in Changningho's estate, there's not many people that I like." Wu Shuang burst into laughter and raised her hand to rub her son's little head. "Who can catch your eye?" "My big brother." Fu Yin had a look of admiration on his face. "My big brother will definitely be the most powerful person in the world in the future." His big brother was only 2 years older than him, but his cultivation had already reached the peak of perfection. He had to admit that his big brother was extremely powerful. Third Fu couldn't help but sigh. "Son, you can't always use the little dumpling as your standard. Xiao Tuanzi was truly one of a kind in the world. If you used him as your standard for everything, there's a 99% chance that the rest of you wouldn't be able to catch your eye." Fu Yin nodded. Big brother said the same thing. He was already trying his best to improve it. He was trying his best not to use Big Brother as the standard for everything. But there was nothing he could do about it. It was a habit that had been formed for a long time, and he couldn't change it. The next day, the Wushuang family of 3 returned to the Chang Ningho estate. Ever since they got married, they had been living in the official residence of the first-grade protector of the nation, which was bestowed by His Majesty. She would return home once every 2 months and send some gifts during festivals. Her relationship with Marquis Ning's manor was basically like that. It was neither too far nor too close. Princess Wushuang's status was noble, so she naturally didn't need to greet the second madam of the Changningho estate, Madame Bao, by offering tea. Madame Bao couldn't control her even if she wanted to. These years, their relationship was neither good nor bad. Ever since the crown prince ascended the throne, Third Fu and Wu Shuang had become the new emperor's right-hand men. Madame Bao couldn't do anything to them. Now that the situation had changed, everyone in the estate fawned over the third young master and the princess when they returned. No one dared to look down on them. Even Chang Ningho would greet his son and daughter-in-law with a smile on his face. He no longer dared to be jealous of Third Fu as he used to be. When Madame Bao saw that her stepson was living like a fish in water, her heart itched with hatred, but there was nothing she could do. She wanted them to come back every 2 or 3 days to be scolded, but every time they came back, she was the one who was almost angered to death. When the third young master returned to the Changningho estate, he took his wife and son to his own courtyard. His courtyard at the Changningho estate wasn't very big and couldn't be compared to Madame Bao's precious son, Fourth Fu. But they didn't come back often, so this courtyard was enough for them to stay for 2 or 3 days. Little Fu Yun couldn't sit still. When he entered the room, he rolled around on the bed, calling out, "Mother, mother, can I go out and play with Little Black?" "No," Princess Wushuang said helplessly. "We'll stay here for 2 days. The day after tomorrow, we'll leave for the Holy Region. You can play to your heart's content then. But you have to be good at the Changningho estate for the next 2 days. Don't cause trouble for your father, okay?" Oh, Fu Yun pouted her little mouth and was a little unhappy. In the palace, he was a little bully. When he got into trouble with Big Brother Xiao Tuanzi, Big Brother Xiao Tuanzi would stand in front of him. But every time he entered the Changningho estate, his mother would make him timid and not allow him to do this or that. He hated the Changningho estate the most and wanted to never come back. When he came back, he always wanted to hit his brothers who were a few years older than him, Princess. A maidservant walked in with a complicated expression on her face. When Wu Shuang saw her expression, she immediately understood. "Is Concubine Bao here?" "Yes, Princess." Princess Wu Shuang couldn't help but sigh. Every time Concubine Bao saw her, she would take her hand and cry. She didn't know what to say. Last time, Jojo had laughed at her. "Why do you care about that person? They're all crazy people. If you care about them, she'll pester you instead." Princess Wu Shuang was filled with regret. Just because she had helped Concubine Bao last time, she had caused a huge problem for herself. Bao Cuaping walked through the door while sobbing. At first, she looked around the room. When she found that Wu Shuang was alone, she threw herself at her and knelt down at her feet. "Princess, Princess, you have to save me this time. There's no way for me to survive in the Changningho estate." Wu Shuang couldn't help but press her head. The person in front of her was fourth young Master Fu's true love, Miss Bao. But in just 3 years, this cousin had aged so much that no one would even look at her if she was left on the street. Her hair was tied up in a simple bun, and there was a strand of white hair in front of her forehead. She looked even older than 3 months ago. This was the fourth young Master Fu who had said that his true feelings for Miss Bao would never change. He yearned for her and would treat her well for the rest of his life. On the second day of their marriage, Miss Bao had angered her aunt when she served tea and was demoted to the second madam, the fourth young master's co-wife. In fact, her aunt had found an excuse to remove Miss Bao's position as the fourth young master's wife. Chapter 57:21. In the end, it was because even Miss Bao, her aunt, didn't think highly of the Bao family. Madame Bao had wanted to marry her niece to Third Fu, but in the end, she suffered the consequences of her own actions. She was definitely unhappy that her niece had ended up in her own family. In addition, when they got married, rumors about Miss Bao's poor health and fertility problems spread throughout the capital. Madame Bao used this opportunity to pull her niece down from the horse and told her that if she couldn't give birth to a son for the Marquis's mansion within a year, she would demote Miss Bao to a concubine. A year later, Bao Suaping really became concubine Bao. Madame Bao then married a woman from a prominent family for her beloved son. This woman's surname was Liu, and she was 6 or 7 years older than fourth young Master Fu. She was very ugly, but her ancestor was a general, and her ancestral property was quite rich. The dowry that Madame Liu brought over was much better than Bao Suaping's. She became the mistress of the household as soon as she entered the family. Although she had a bad temper, she was polite and filial to Madame Bao. Madame Bao naturally treated her well for the sake of her rich dowry. But Fourth Fu and his cousin were miserable. At first, Fourth Fu wanted to put on airs in front of Madame Liu, but Madame Liu slapped him so hard that he lost his temper on the spot. Fourth Fu hated Madame Liu's ugly face, so he usually didn't step in her courtyard and liked to hang out with his cousin. In the end, Madame Liu was also decisive. She directly set fire to her cousin's house, and even used the excuse of seducing the young master to beat her cousin up every 2 to 3 days. Her cousin lived a miserable life and went to greet the mistress every morning and night. Every day, she was tortured by the mistress until she had no energy. 3 months ago, Princess Wushuang returned to Marquis Ning's mansion with Third Fu. As soon as she entered, she saw Madame Liu leading a dozen fierce old women to tie Bao Suaping to a tree and whip her. Wushuang couldn't stand it and scolded her. In the end, she got herself such a hot potato. Now that she thought about it, she regretted it. Jojo had the foresight. She shouldn't talk to people she shouldn't talk to. Otherwise, she would be asking for trouble. Princess, Bao Suaping cried as she looked at her. Can you take Suaping in? Mistress is like a lioness from the east of the river. If she can treat young master like this, then there's no need to mention me, a concubine mother. I can't even live for half a day. Wushuang was annoyed to death, but on the surface she said calmly, You are the concubine mother of the fourth master of the Marquis, Chongning Fu. Why should I take you in? This Miss Bao was as troublesome as ever. She didn't even mind that she was bringing trouble to others by saying such things. That old woman is in her early 30s and can't get married. My aunt took a fancy to her family background and generous dowry, so she welcomed her into the family. She really caused me and fourth young master to suffer. When they first entered, fourth young master was still able to somewhat suppress that old woman. Who would have thought that after a few setbacks, the fourth young master would also be like a paper tiger, being controlled by that ugly woman. When Bao Suaping went to Fourth Fu to complain tearfully, at first Fourth Fu would feel heartache. He would roll up his sleeves to show his masculinity and charge to the tigress to speak up for her. But as time passed, after 1 or 2 years, Fourth Fu became annoyed. During this period of time, he didn't go home and spent all his time at the brothel. Out of sight, out of mind. He had long forgotten about the cousin he swore to love for his entire life. The princess was speechless when she heard this. It had only been a short 3 years. Back then, Fourth Fu had dared to argue with her directly for the sake of his beloved cousin. Bao Suaping cried bitterly in front of her and stole glances at her. At this time, she was extremely jealous of Princess Wushuang. She hated her to death, but the situation forced her to pretend to be pitiful and cry in front of this princess. Sometimes, she would dream of him in the middle of the night. At that time, if this princess hadn't interfered, she would have been the wife of a great general who was second only to one person. Third Fu was originally more handsome than Fourth Fu, and his cultivation and ability were many times higher than his. Now, third young Master Fu was highly valued by the emperor. If she could marry into the great general's mansion, she would be the object of envy of all the noble ladies in the capital city. It was all this princess's fault. She was already noble enough, but why did she like to steal other people's husbands? Seeing her crying so pitifully, Princess Wushuang couldn't help but sigh. Concubine Bao, it's really not convenient for me to interfere in your fourth young master's affairs. Bao Suaping had been hoping in her heart. If she pretended to be pitiful and cried pitifully in front of the princess might have a saint's heart and bring her back to the great general's mansion. But she didn't expect that this woman would reject her so decisively. Her head exploded on the spot, and she couldn't help but sit up straight. "Princess, are you really going to leave me in the lurch?" Bao Suaping widened her eyes and questioned Wu Shuang harshly. "Don't forget, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have become like this today." The maid was stunned. She pressed one hand on the sword at her waist and shouted angrily at Bao Suaping. "How dare you? What a bold woman, daring to speak to the princess like this. Princess, if you don't take me out of Chongningho's mansion, you'll be killing me," Bao Suaping shouted harshly, throwing caution to the wind. "Why don't you think about why I've become like this? You've done a great service and have an unshirkable responsibility. Right now, I just want you to take me out of the mansion. Are you going to refuse such a small request? With your status, you only need to give the order. Even if you want me to be fourth young master's co-wife again, it's only a matter of a word." Wu Shuang stared dumbfounded at the woman in front of her, unable to speak for a long time. She really didn't expect that there would be such a naive woman like Bao Suaping in this world. She was already fourth young master's concubine. If she wanted to leave Chongningho's mansion, she had to fight for it herself. Why was she pushing all the responsibility onto her? She was the princess of the king of Jinyuan's mansion, the wife of a first-rank protector of the kingdom. What right did she have to meddle in the messy affairs of the fourth branch? Did she have nothing better to do? Moreover, if she, as a sister-in-law, meddled in the affairs of fourth uncle's family, what would she do? She once again regretted saving this dogskin plaster woman 3 months ago. In any case, the Lu matriarch couldn't really kill anyone in Chongningho's mansion. In any case, Bao Suaping was still her mother-in-law's niece. Even if she didn't care about the monk, she still had to care about the Buddha. Wu Shuang shook her head, too lazy to say such meaningless words to the woman in front of her. Just as she was about to send her away, a voice came from outside the courtyard. "Third sister-in-law, fourth sister-in-law requests an audience." Chapter 5722. The Lu matriarch angrily walked into the courtyard with several strong women. And Yang immediately jumped out from his hiding place and pulled out his long sword to block the crowd. The Lu matriarch and the group of women were all shocked, and their attitudes softened. Yes, this was Princess Wu Shuang of the king of Jinyuan's residence, not the daughter of a small family. Princess Wu Shuang had truly experienced the battlefield and life and death. She was someone who could pull out her sword and kill at any time. When the Lu matriarch thought of this, she couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. When she heard that the little bitch Bao had come to the princess to complain, she was so angry that she didn't have time to think too much and hurried over with her people. When she saw the situation in the courtyard, she calmed down. The Lu matriarch carefully bowed to the princess. "Sister-in-law greets third sister-in-law." Princess Wu Shuang raised her eyes to look at her. The Lu matriarch's appearance was very coarse. She had a big face, a flat nose, and a pair of small eyes that weren't very decent. How could a playboy like Fourth Fu take a fancy to such an unattractive woman? However, the Lu matriarch wasn't a completely unscrupulous person. She didn't call her princess and instead called her third sister-in-law. That was telling her that they were only going to discuss family matters today. Since she was the Lu matriarch's third sister-in-law, she couldn't use her status as a princess to pressure her. However, from beginning to end, the princess had never thought of using her status to pressure the Lu matriarch. She also wouldn't go tit for tat with the Lu matriarch for concubine Bao, because it hadn't reached that stage yet, and concubine Bao wasn't anyone to her. She had only saved her last time. But now, in order to save concubine Bao, she had to implicate herself against the fourth branch and cause trouble for her husband. There was absolutely no need. Fourth sister-in-law, take her back. The Lu matriarch was slightly delighted when she saw the princess waving her hand in an extremely amiable manner. It seemed that the imperial daughter did not believe Madame Bao's one-sided words and insisted on standing up for Madame Bao against her. When concubine Bao heard the princess's words, it was as if the sky was about to collapse. She collapsed on the ground and cried and made a fuss. Princess, you're really not going to save me. How can I survive when I go back? She will beat me to death. She was still hoping that the princess would take her to the general's residence. Wushuang looked at Madame Bao's hopeful eyes and immediately looked away in disgust. What a joke. Did Madame Bao still have some improper thoughts about Third Fu? Mrs. Liu immediately shouted fiercely. You only have yourself to blame if I kill you. Hurry up and tie this little bitch back. Don't let her mess around in Third Master's court. Yes. A few old nannies immediately rolled up their sleeves to catch her. They had long been trained to catch people, especially when it came to catching a weak woman like Concubine Bao. Every time he caught her, it was as if he was carrying a chicken as he dragged her out. Concubine Bao cried and screamed, kicking and throwing everywhere. Help! Mistress was so vicious that she wanted to kill him. Your Highness, you're not going to save him. The head maidservant beside the princess immediately became angry. What are you shouting about? Your Highness, I was wrong to save you. What a shameless thing. As a concubine, she didn't respect the mistress. No wonder the mistress made things difficult for her. Wushuang looked coldly at Bao Cuiping. Don't let her continue to cause trouble at my place. Mrs. Liu nodded at the princess. Your Highness, please don't laugh at us. She comes from a small family, so she's just like this. I will teach her a good lesson later so that she won't dare to bother you again. Princess Wushuang nodded indifferently. At this point, she had completely lost her patience with Bao Cuiping. Take her back. She didn't want to care about the fourth branch's matters. She didn't want to cause trouble for herself. Mrs. Liu gave a meaningful look to the other nannies and ordered them to gag Madame Bao's mouth and drag her out. At this time, someone stumbled into the room and shouted angrily at Mrs. Liu. Mrs. Liu, what are you doing now? Fourth young master, you can't barge in. This is Third Master's courtyard. Get out of the way. Fourth Fu waved away his servant's hand and strode in. He pointed to the sky and shouted, Where's Third Fu? Third Fu, tell him to come out and see me. Third young Master Fu, who was practicing calligraphy with his son in his study, couldn't help but frown when he heard the commotion outside getting louder. A guard hurriedly reported, General, fourth young Master Fu has barged in and is shouting in the courtyard. Third Fu's face immediately turned cold. He carried his son and walked out. Fourth Fu dared to barge into his courtyard. He clearly didn't take him, the third young master, seriously. Little Fu Yun asked cutely, Daddy, is that annoying uncle here again? Can I hit him? Third Fu rubbed his son's head. Fourth uncle is disobedient. Daddy will hit him. All right, then I can only hit his son. The little boy nodded gloomily. Does fourth uncle have a son? Not yet. Third Fu felt that his son's question was a bit funny. He didn't expect the child to say, Then he won't be able to do it. When the guard at the side heard this, he almost burst out laughing. He nodded and praised, Little young master is right. Third Fu's mouth twitched. He quickly walked into the courtyard and saw Wushuang holding a red horse whip and standing there with a cold look in her eyes. When he came out, he heard Wushuang say stiffly, If you dare to take another step forward, I will break your legs. This was not a joke. The imperial princess had been on the battlefield for many years and had a dignified aura about her. Fourth Fu, a dissolute young master, couldn't help but feel a bit afraid when he saw the imperial princess. Of course, he didn't dare to take another step forward. He took a few steps back and muttered, I'm here to look for third brother. I'm not looking for you. What a fierce woman. Third brother definitely wouldn't be happy if he married such a wife. However, third brother's life was getting better and better than his. He was a general and trusted by his majesty. Just thinking about it made him very jealous. If he had been the one who befriended the crown prince first back then, he would have been the great general now. The most hateful thing was that his mother was a second wife. Because of her status, no matter how hard he worked, he would always be suppressed by the legitimate son of the first wife. Fourth Fu was furious and looked at Third Fu angrily. What are you doing here? Third young master Fu asked coldly. He looked around and glanced at Madame Liu, who was standing behind him with her head lowered. If you're here to look for fourth sister-in-law, you can take her away with you. Don't make trouble for me. Fourth young master Fu was furious. He flicked his sleeve and shouted, "Let's go." At this moment, Bao Suiping, who was held down by the two old maids, used all her strength and finally broke free from the old maids. She cried and threw herself at Fourth Fu's feet. Cousin, cousin," Bao Suiping cried and hugged Fourth Fu's legs. "You have to make a decision for me. Mistress humiliates and kicks me every day. I can't live anymore." Fourth Fu was shocked. He looked down and saw that it was Bao Suiping. A trace of disdain flashed across his eyes. How did his cousin become so old and senile? There was even a strand of white hair on her temples. In the past, she had a charming face that made him happy and yearn for it. But now, this cousin seemed to have changed into another person. She was so ugly that he could hardly look at her. On the other hand, that rude and unreasonable princess Wu Shuang used to be heroic and walked like the wind. She looked like a tomboy. Now that she had given birth to a son, she showed a motherly glow. She looked heroic with a bit of gentleness. Her face also shone like pearls and jade. The more he looked at her, the more intriguing it was. In the past, he had thought that he had picked up a treasure by marrying his cousin. He didn't expect that the one who had picked up a treasure was Third Fu. After marrying the princess, Third Fu's career soared to the skies like a great rock, spreading its wings for thousands of miles. Now that the princess had given him a son, he was really lucky. He had a wife, a son, and a high position. Just thinking about it made him grit his teeth. "Go away." Fourth young master Fu kicked his cousin angrily and kicked her to the side. Third Fu wasn't the only one who was surprised. Princess Wu Shuang, who was beside him, was even more direct. Her mouth opened slightly in shock. Fourth Fu, Princess Wu Shuang couldn't help but ask in confusion, "Did you forget what you said before? Didn't you say that you would cherish your cousin forever? Why did you change your mind in just 3 years?" This was too exaggerated. If she hadn't seen Fourth Fu's performance with her own eyes, then Wu Shuang wouldn't have associated this person with the Fourth Fu from 3 years ago. 3 years ago, Fourth Fu had been so affectionate and gentle to his cousin. What was going on? 3 years had passed in the blink of an eye. Everything was developing in a strange direction. Bao Suiping sobbed. "Your Highness, did you see that? That heartless person has long forgotten our vows. Back then, it was the Empress Dowager who arranged my marriage to Fourth Young Master. Their family treated me like this and disregarded the Empress Dowager's imperial edict. Princess Wu Shuang didn't want to hurt this woman anymore. She felt that this person was a bit pitiful. But even pitiful people had their detestable sides. She could be considered as asking for it. Back then, Bai Wuxia had made an imperial edict to pair the two of them together. After that, he had long forgotten about this matter. How could he really support this Miss Bao? It was simply wishful thinking. Moreover, the Empress Dowager and the Emperor Emeritus were wandering around leisurely. They were rarely in the capital city. Even if Bao Suiping really wanted to ask the Empress Dowager for help, she didn't know where to find her. The black-hearted Marquis Ning's estate. Bao Suiping covered her face and sobbed. They said they would cherish me for a lifetime, but in the end, it was all lies. Fourth Fu was very embarrassed. He kicked her and scolded. "What are you blabbering about? Hurry and shut up. Why don't you take a look at your old appearance? Which man would cherish something like you?" Moreover, in the first 2 years, when had he not treated his cousin well? When a Lu madam married into the family, Bao Suiping cried and begged him for help every day. When had he not stood up for her? But after many times, he was annoyed and didn't have the mood to be long-winded about Bao Suiping's matters. Later, the newly opened brothel added a few stunning beauties that charmed him. He often didn't return home at night and rarely went home. Who would have thought that when he came back half a year ago, Bao Suiping was so old that she looked like a haggard old woman. This frightened him. This kind of woman was not like his beautiful cousin. She was simply dirtying his eyes. Naturally, he had to keep a respectful distance. Bao Suiping sobbed and complained. "I was tortured by the Lu madam until I was neither human nor ghost. If it weren't for your incompetence, I wouldn't have become like this. Even now, you still despise me. You're heartless, fourth Fu. She hated this man to the core. This man had ruined her life. Fourth Fu looked embarrassed. He turned to the women and said, "What are you waiting for? Hurry and take them away." Princess Wushuang shook her head. She couldn't help but sigh as she watched the three people pulling and swearing as they walked out. They're really a bunch of weirdos. Fourth Fu and the Lu Madam quarreled all the way. Bao Cuiping's cries could be heard from time to time. They were truly a resentful couple. Third Fu snorted. "Close the courtyard door. Don't let these people in again. They're making so much noise that it's dirty to the eyes." After speaking, he took his wife's hand and lowered his head to ask, "Shuang Shuang, what's wrong?" She looked as if she was thinking about something. He reached out to touch his wife's face and called out to Shuang Shuang. Wu Shuang glanced at him. "Your brother is always complaining that his cousin has become ugly. Are all men like this? After a woman's beauty has faded, they don't like her at all? I don't know about other people, but I'm not like this." Third Fu smiled at her. Besides, Fourth Fu himself deserved a lot of credit for his cousin becoming so ugly. Who else can he blame? To be able to make a woman become so ugly after being married to him for 3 years, he must be quite capable. A real good man, such as your husband, will only make his wife more beautiful and more confident. She'll be full of sunshine and radiant. When Wu Shuang heard this, she couldn't help but spit at him. This man was still so shameless. In the end, he couldn't help praising himself. But when she thought about it carefully, what this guy said was very reasonable. The kind of married life after marriage would make the kind of man and woman. Whether it was a match made in heaven or a resentful couple, it all depended on how they were. Wu Shuang couldn't help but purse her lips and secretly smile. "Let's go back tomorrow." "Okay." Third Fu nodded. He didn't want to stay in this foul place any longer. It was enough for him to stay here for 1 day. "Let's go home and get ready. We're leaving for the sacred region." The couple looked at each other and smiled. Little Fu Yin couldn't help but come out from between the two of them. He said in a childish voice, "Mother, father, I want to eat a stick of candied haw on the way back." "You little greedy cat." Wu Shuang pinched her son's little face and smiled gently. Chapter 5723. In the gloomy and quiet forest. In an instant, it was disrupted by the sound of hurried footsteps. Qin Nitian, Xian Huang, and the others ran quickly. Their clothes fluttered in the wind, startling the birds on the branches and causing the grass and leaves to scatter. The wind howled in front of him, and strong gales rose in all directions. Nitian, Xian Huang, and the others slowly stopped and looked around in confusion. Only then did they realize that the road in front of them was blocked by several teams. 200 to 300 people slashed at the same time. Taking a closer look, there was a transparent mesh cover in front of them. It was like a glass bowl that was turned upside down on the ground. No matter how many air currents surged on the cover, they were all pushed back. It was safe and sound. However, the group of players who had exerted their strength were in a miserable state. Howls of anguish could be heard everywhere as everyone was flung away by the recoil and fell to the ground in all directions. Nitian, Xian Huang, and the others stood diagonally opposite them. They looked coldly at the people who were crazily slashing at the transparent mesh cover. When the crowd retreated a little, they realized that there was something in the mesh cover. To be exact, it was a little girl who was kneeling on the ground. Her face was so pale that it was almost transparent. She looked like she was 7 years old. Her hands were tightly grasping a big sword that was even longer than her body. Her dark eyes were filled with mist. On her thin little face, they looked exceptionally large. Her hands seemed to be exerting all their strength, so much so that her whole body was trembling. Beside her, there was an animal that was covered in a faint white fluorescent light. It was unknown whether it was dead or alive. It was shaped like a deer. Its 4 hooves were covered in white snow. In the middle of its forehead, there was a golden horn that had lost its original luster. Nitian's pupils suddenly shrank. Xian Huang looked into the distance and fell on the little girl in the glass cover. To be exact, it fell on the big sword that she was tightly grasping. Her eyes narrowed. What sword is that? It was so powerful that even from far away, one could feel a wave of vibrating power sweeping over. At this moment, the little girl in the glass cover slowly stood up. Her messy hair covered the tip of her forehead. On her almost transparent pale face, there was a pair of dead eyes and a small lip that was bitten to the point that it was bloodless. Not good. Xian Huang's expression changed. Without waiting for Nitian to speak, she had already shot forward. Retreat. Hundreds of people at the scene changed their expressions and quickly retreated. At the same time, the big sword in the little girl's hand instantly pierced through the glass cover and flew towards the nearest crowd. She looked at the child. The cold pond, the blue waves, and the watery eyes. That kind of clarity and coldness, that kind of darkness and solitude, and that kind of insight into the world. How bleak and sad her heart must be. This should also be a child with a story swoosh. The Fushi sword flashed in the air and disappeared immediately. Xian Huang walked forward and looked at the dying animal beside the little girl. Unfortunately, the golden horn on its forehead had completely lost its color. The fur on its body had also darkened. All of this indicated that this descendant of the white unicorn with the orthodox bloodline had been dead for a long time. No wonder the surrounding people went crazy and attacked the little girl and the unicorn without any regard for their lives. It was said that one could obtain the power of the white unicorn's bloodline by obtaining its blood. Even if it was just a legend, it could still make people go crazy. Xian Huang and Against the Sky swept their gazes across the people in front of them. They were inhumane. For a groundless legend and a cup of the white unicorn's blood, they despicably besieged such a young girl. At this moment, Xian Huang, who was inside the light shield, was about to reach out to touch the dead white unicorn. However, the little girl used all her strength to push it away. Her small body pounced on the white unicorn and hugged it tightly, not allowing anyone to touch it. Xian Huang smiled helplessly and raised her hand to rub the little girl's messy head. She said softly, "Silly child, if you don't move away, how can I cut out a child?" The little girl paused and suddenly turned to look at Xian Huang. Her eyes were filled with strong distrust and a trace of shock. After all, looking at the white unicorn's appearance, it was impossible to tell that it was pregnant with a little unicorn. Xian Huang smiled faintly at her and reached out to pull the little girl to the side. She patted her head. "If you don't feel well, you can close your eyes. Don't force yourself." Because the scene of being cut open was not that beautiful. However, the little girl watched from the side from beginning to end and did not even blink the entire time. Soon, a snow-white, curled-up unicorn the size of a cat with its eyes closed was placed in the hands of the little girl by the Dark Phoenix. Xian Huang squatted down and looked at the little girl. With a flip of her hand, a pure white little gourd was placed in the little girl's hand. "Let it drink after an hour." The little girl stared at Xian Huang cautiously. Then, she hugged the little unicorn and took a step back. The little girl hugged it tightly. Her pale lips were tightly pursed, and her eyes were slightly heavy. No expression could be seen on her face. "Why are you helping me?" The little girl did not speak, but her eyes revealed her intention. "Because you are worth it." Xian Huang laughed softly and raised her hand to rub her head. "You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.